Have you ever tried to get an AI to do something and it just totally misses the mark? It can feel like you're talking to a brick wall. Well, it turns out getting what you really want from an AI is a skill. You could even call it an art. And today, we're going to unlock the secrets of how to talk to an AI the right way. So, how do you talk to an AI, really? I mean, if you've ever used something like ChatGPT or even just asked Siri for the weather, you're already doing it. But here's the thing. There's a huge difference between asking a simple question and giving a powerful instruction. And the secret ingredient? It's all in the prompt.
So what exactly is a prompt? Well, put simply, it's the command you give to the AI. It's not just a question, It's the set of instructions that kicks this incredibly powerful engine into gear and tells it exactly what to do.
And here's the cool part. You're basically already a pro at this without even realizing it. Think about it when you're listening to a friend's story and you say, okay, and then what happened? That's a prompt. You're guiding the conversation. It's the exact same idea when you're talking to an AI.
Okay, so this brings us to the main event, prompt engineering. This is all about learning the difference between just, talking at an AI and actually directing it to get the precise answer you're looking for.
Here's probably the best way to picture it. Imagine you have a personal assistant who is an absolute genius, but takes everything you say literally. They won't read between the lines, they won't guess what you mean, they will do exactly what you tell them to do, for better or for worse.
And this slide just nails it, right? If you ask your super literal assistant for some food, who knows what you're going to get? Maybe a sandwich, maybe a single carrot. But if you ask for a cheese pizza with olives, the outcome is perfect. There's just no room for misunderstanding.
And that's really the heart of it. An AI has absolutely zero human intuition. It can't read your mind or guess what you're thinking, so the responsibility is totally on us to be crystal clear. The more specific you are with your prompt, the better your result is going to be. It's that simple.
So when we put it all together, prompt engineering is just the skill of crafting those super clear, effective instructions. It's about designing your questions to unlock the full power of the AI, whether you need, a creative poem or a quick factual summary. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Okay, this sounds like something for coders or tech wizards. But let me tell you, this is a new superpower for everyone. And I mean everyone. It doesn't matter if you're a student, a CEO, an artist, a doctor, your job, your age. It doesn't matter at all. Learning how to talk to AI is becoming just as fundamental as knowing how to type or read. Seriously. I mean, just look. It's already happening all over the place. Students are using it to understand really complex subjects. Doctors are using it to summarize dense research papers. Marketers, they're brainstorming entire campaigns. Artists are generating incredible new concepts. It's a game changer across the board. Think about it like this. You have access to a nearly universal knowledge base. It's like the biggest library in the world right at your fingertips. And prompt engineering, well, that's the key that unlocks the door. All you have to do is learn how to ask the right questions. Okay, so theory is great, but how do we actually do it? Let's get practical for a minute and break down what really makes a great prompt. This is where you'll see how a tiny change in your question can make a massive difference in the answer you get back. This is a perfect example. If you ask an AI to tell me about space, you're going to get a vague, probably boring wall of text. But look at that better prompt. It gets specific. The topic? Black holes. The format? 3 simple bullets. And the audience? A college student. The result you get from that is going to be focused, useful, and exactly what you were looking for. So to make this easy, you can think of a great prompt as having 4 levers you can pull. First is tone. How do you want the answer to sound? Formal, funny, simple? Second is detail. Do you need one sentence or a whole paragraph? Third, perspective. Should the AI answer as, say, a historian or a scientist? And finally, there's context. What background info does the AI need to know to give you the best answer? By consciously thinking about and adjusting these 4 levers, you go from being just a passive user to an active designer. You're not just asking random questions anymore. You are literally engineering the exact output you want to see. So, we've covered the what, the why, and the how. Now, we get to the most important part of all of this. It's your turn to play around and experiment. Honestly, the absolute best way to get the hang of this is to just start doing it. It's all about trial and error. Open up an AI tool and just play. Some of your prompts are going to fail, and that's not just okay, it's perfect, because every bad response teaches you something new about how to write a better prompt next time. Ready to start right now? Okay, here's a super simple 4-step plan. Step 1, open your favorite AI tool. 2, just ask a question. Anything. Don't overthink it. 3, see what it gives you. And 4, this is the magic step. Think about those levers we talked about. Tone, detail, perspective, and context. And refine your prompt, then just try again. That's the whole loop.
So really, the only thing left to do is to begin. Think of a problem you've been trying. Hey, have you ever felt like you're just not getting the most out of AI? You're definitely not alone. The real secret isn't about knowing how to code. It's about knowing how to ask. Today, we're diving into prompt engineering, the skill that really unlocks AI's true power. Let's get into it.
So let's just start with that big question. We all hear about these incredible AI tools that are changing the world, but what's the actual secret to making them work for you? It's not about being a programmer or some kind of data wizard. It's way, way simpler than that. The whole secret comes down to this one word, the prompt. You can just think of it as how we talk to an AI. It's any instruction, any question, any bit of text we feed into the machine to tell it what we want. This is the absolute foundation of how we communicate with these amazing new tools.
Okay, so when we're using tools like ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude, what are we really talking to? Well, the answer is something called a large language model, or LLM for short.
The easiest way to think of an LLM is as a giant brain that's been trained on a massive library of books, articles, websites, basically a huge chunk of the internet. It doesn't think like we do, but it's gotten incredibly good at predicting the next most logical word in a sentence. Our prompt is just the starting point that guides its predictions, and that's how we get it to generate answers, write stories, or even solve problems for us.
So this brings us to the main event, prompt engineering. Now, don't let that word engineering intimidate you. Seriously, this isn't about building bridges or writing crazy complex code. It's simply about mastering the art of asking.
At its core, prompt engineering is just the skill of designing your instructions to be so clear and so effective that you get exactly what you're looking for, hopefully on the first try. Getting this right saves a ton of time, it cuts down on all that trial and error, and it just leads to much better, more creative, and way more accurate results from the AI.
So what does a good prompt actually look like in practice? Well, the single most important rule is clarity. Let's take a look at how just a little bit of specificity can completely change the entire outcome.
And this brings us to a really crucial rule. You have to be literal. The AI isn't going to guess what you mean or try to read between the lines. Just think of it like a brilliant but very literal assistant that follows your instructions exactly to the letter.
Let's use a super simple analogy. If you tell your friend, hey, bring me some food, what are you going to get? I mean, who knows? It's a total crapshoot, right? It could be anything. But if you say, bring me a cheese pizza with olives, you're going to get a cheese pizza with olives. That's the level of precision an AI needs.
And this applies perfectly to how we talk to AI. A vague prompt like, tell me about space, is just, it's lost in a whole universe of information. But when you give it a clear, specific target, like telling it the exact topic, the format you want, and the audience you're writing for, it can zero right in and deliver exactly what you need.
So the most important thing to remember is this. The quality of your output is directly tied to the quality of your input. It's that simple. Your instructions are the blueprint for the AI's response. A clear blueprint gets you a well-built house. A vague one, well, you get a mess.
Okay, so we get it. We need to be specific, but what elements of our prompt can we actually control? Well, there are 3 key levers you can pull to totally shape the AI's response. Let's call it your personal prompting toolkit.
First up is tone. Do you need a funny, casual tweet or a really formal, professional report? You just have to tell it. Next is detail. You can ask for a quick 2-sentence summary or a multi-paragraph deep dive. And finally, and this one is really powerful, you can define the perspective. Try asking the AI to respond as a skeptical scientist or an encouraging coach or, even a pirate. Mastering these 3 things gives you just incredible control over the final output.
All right, so now that we know how to do it, the next big question is, who actually needs to learn this stuff? Is this just for tech people? The answer is a huge, definitive no.
This skill isn't for just one type of task. You can use prompt engineering to help you write an essay, to finally understand a complex topic like, say, math, to plan out your entire next vacation, to write and even fix computer code, or to generate some really creative marketing ideas. The possibilities are they're endless.
And this is exactly why it's a skill for everyone. It doesn't matter what you do for a living or what your background is. From an elementary school student learning something new, to a PhD researcher analyzing data, to a professional working in healthcare or marketing, learning how to effectively communicate with AI is becoming a truly fundamental skill.
And you want to know the best part? You don't need any special qualifications to get started. Mastery in prompt engineering really comes from just one thing: practice. It's all about trial and error. The more you play with it, the more you experiment with different prompts, the more intuitive it's all going to become. And that brings us to this final, really powerful idea. Look, you can watch videos and read guides all day long, but nothing beats your own hands-on experience. The best way to learn is to simply open up an AI tool and just start asking questions about things you're actually curious about.
So, the real question I want to leave you with is this. Now that you have the key, what doors are you going to unlock? What problems will you solve? What ideas will you explore? And what will you create?
You know when you type a question into an AI and get a perfect, almost magical answer back? It really can feel like it's reading your mind. But is it magic, or is it something else? Something, well, a lot weirder. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on how these systems actually process our language.
So, let's just get right to the biggest question of all. When you talk to an AI, does it actually understand you? You know, the way a person does? Well, the short answer is a big fat no. And honestly, understanding why is going to change the way you use these tools forever. And this right here, this is the core of it. When we read, we get the context. We feel the emotion in the words. We get the joke. An AI, it's not doing any of that at all. It's just seeing raw data bits, matching patterns it's seen before, and then calculating the odds of what should come next. It's not even playing the same sport, let alone the same game.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll cover why AI doesn't read like you do. Then, we're going to break down this weird concept of tokens. After that, we'll get into the real power of patterns, explore the biggest promises and pitfalls, and finally, we'll talk about how you can become the guide for this machine to get way better results.
Okay, first things first, and it's the most important point. AI absolutely does not read like you. It deconstructs language, it shatters it into a format that would look like total nonsense to us, but for a machine, it's perfect.
So, if they aren't reading words, what in the world are they seeing? Well, that brings us to the most basic building block of all AI language, a little thing called a token.
So what is a token? Really, it's just a small chunk of text. It could be a whole word like the or cat, or just part of a word, a syllable. On average, a token is about 4 characters long. Every single sentence you write gets shattered into these tiny, tiny pieces.
The best way to think about it is like this. You look at a house and you see a house. An AI looks at the same thing and just sees a giant pile of Lego bricks. It has no idea what a house is, but it has learned, from looking at billions of examples, which bricks are most likely to be stacked on top of which other bricks.
Let's make this super clear with an example. To us, the word running is one concept, one idea. But to an AI, it's 2 separate Lego blocks. You've got the token for run and the token for ing. It just learns that the ing token very, very often follows the run token. That's it. That is the entire logic.
Okay, so the AI has all these tiny little pieces, these tokens. How does it assemble them into something that makes sense, like an email or a useful answer? Well, it all comes down to the incredible power of patterns.
You've probably seen this classic sentence before, right? The cat sat on the... And your brain immediately fills in the blank, maybe with mat or chair, because you understand what cats are and what they do. An AI gets to the same answer, but for a completely different and kind of mind-blowing reason. See, the AI has analyzed literally billions of sentences from all over the internet. It knows, just from a statistical standpoint, that after the sequence of tokens for the cat sat on the token for mat has a super high probability of showing up next. Table is also pretty likely, but moon, the odds are almost 0. It's not thinking, it's just playing the odds based on all the data it was trained on. Now, to be fair, it does remember the context of your current chat, which helps it make predictions that are actually relevant to what you're talking about. But this is also why if you start jumping all over the place, talking about cars, then boats, then ancient philosophy all in one chat, it can get totally overloaded and confused. It's trying to find a pattern in complete chaos.
Okay, so this whole pattern matching system leads to some truly incredible abilities for sure, but it also creates some very specific and sometimes really funny failures. So let's dive into the promise and the pitfalls.
On the promise side, an AI can process amounts of information that we can't even comprehend. It finds patterns in data that no human could ever hope to spot. And this lets it do amazing things, like adapting its style. You can literally ask it to explain something complex, like calculus, as a bedtime story. And because it's seen patterns for calculus and patterns for bedtime stories, it can just blend them together.
But then we get to the biggest pitfall, the one you've probably heard about, something called a hallucination. This is where that pattern matching goes terribly wrong. Since the AI doesn't understand the meaning behind the words, it can confidently, and I mean confidently, state complete nonsense just because it fits a pattern that feels familiar.
Here is a perfect, simple example. We asked the AI a joke that relies 100% on cultural context, not on statistical word patterns. So what might the AI do? It might come back with a very literal, very technical analysis of a chicken's trajectory. It sees the tokens for chicken, cross, and road, and it matches them to patterns it's seen in, physics textbooks or logistics manuals. It completely misses the joke because it has no concept of what a joke even is. It only knows patterns. So what's the takeaway here? How do we actually use this knowledge? Well, it's more than just a fun fact. It fundamentally changes our job when we're interacting with AI. And that brings us to our final and honestly our most important point. Maybe the best way to think about it is this. An AI is like a massively, massively skilled parrot. It can mimic any pattern of speech you throw at it, just flawlessly, but with zero understanding of what it's actually saying. It needs a guide. And guess what? That guide is you. This means you'll get so much better results when you stop asking it questions and you start giving it instructions. Be clear, be specific, provide all the context you can. You are not talking to a thinking mind. You are programming a powerful pattern matching machine, and a better, more detailed prompt will always lead to a better response. So now you know the secret. It's not magic, it's just math. It's patterns on a massive scale. So the final question is really for you. Knowing that you're guiding a skilled parrot, not chatting with a conscious mind, how are you going to prompt differently? So we're all playing around with these incredible AI tools like ChatGPT or Gemini, right? But do you ever get the feeling you're not quite getting the most out of them? Well, the secret to unlocking their real power, it isn't in some hidden setting. It's actually in us. It's all about mastering the art of the question.
Yeah, I thought so. We've all been there. You ask for something specific, and you get back this wall of text that's super generic or confusing, or, let's be honest, just plain wrong. It is so frustrating. But the good news is there's a really, really easy fix.
And this right here is the whole ball game. Vague questions get vague answers. See, these AIs are trained on like a massive chunk of the internet. Asking a vague question is kind of like dropping someone in the middle of the world's biggest library and just yelling, "Find me something interesting." They need directions. The quality of the answer you get is always going to be tied to the quality of the question you ask. So, how do we give it those better directions? Well, it all comes down to a super simple, really memorable framework that I call the 3 C's. This is the secret that's going to transform your AI chats from frustrating to, honestly, pretty fantastic. And here they are: clarity, context, and constraints. Just 3 little words. Think of this as your recipe for the perfect prompt. Each one of these helps guide the AI to give you exactly what you're looking for. So let's start with the first C, which is, you could argue, the most important one. All right, first up is clarity. This is the bedrock of a great prompt. It just means being super direct, really specific, and leaving zero room for the AI to guess what you mean. You gotta tell it exactly what you want. Let's look at how powerful this is. Asking an AI to tell me about history. Where does it even begin? That's an impossible task. But what if you ask it to summarize World War II in 5 key points for a 5th grade class? Boom! Suddenly you have a perfect, targeted request. The AI knows the topic, the format, and the audience. Game changer.
And it's the same idea for any subject. Help with math could mean literally anything. But when you give it a specific equation and ask for a step-by-step solution, you're not just asking for help anymore. You're actually defining what a perfect answer looks like.
Okay, so once you've nailed clarity, the next two C's, context and constraints, are what really take your results to the next level. These two work together beautifully. Context basically sets the scene for the AI, and then constraints give it the rules for its performance. Let's dig into context first.
So what do I mean by context? It's all the background info that makes your request make sense. And one of the most powerful tricks here is to give the AI a role, a persona. You're not just talking to a machine anymore, you're talking to an expert. You're basically giving it a job to do.
For instance, instead of just asking a question, you could start your prompt with something like, assume you are an expert physics teacher. That one sentence completely frames the rest of the conversation. The AI will slip into that persona, using the right words and the right level of detail. It's so much more useful. And that brings us to our final C, constraints. Okay, so if context sets the stage, constraints are like the guardrails. They keep the AI's response totally focused and on track. You're telling it exactly how you want the information delivered.
This is your precision toolkit. You can control the length, tell it to be short and sweet, or to write a whole essay. You can demand a certain format, like bullet points or a table. And you can even control the tone. From super professional to fun and creative, you could even ask it to explain something as a rap song. Why not?
Okay, so we've got our three C's, clarity, context, and constraints. Now to bring it all together, I want you to stop thinking of yourself as just a user. From now on, I want you to think of yourself as a movie director. The AI, that's your star actor. And your prompt, well, that's the script.
This quote just hits the nail on the head. A director doesn't just walk on set and tell an actor to act. No way! They give them a character to play, a motivation, they set the scene, and they give them specific lines. That is exactly what you were doing with your prompts.
So look how this all comes together in your director's toolkit. First, you assign a role. You are a seasoned travel guide. That's your context. Then you set the scene. I'm planning my first trip to Italy. More context. And finally, you define the action with perfect clarity and specific constraints. Create a 3-day itinerary for Rome focusing on historical sites in under 500 words. See? You're not just asking a question, you are directing the AI to create the exact masterpiece you have in your head.
So now the power is literally in your hands. You've got the framework, you've got the mindset, you can stop being a passive viewer of whatever the AI spits out and start being the director of what it creates.
You know, at the end of the day, it all comes down to this one single truth. The clearer your question, the better the answer. The effort you put into the prompt comes right back to you in the quality of the response. It really is that simple.
So the only question left is, now that you're in the director's chair, what masterpiece will you direct first? Go on, give it a try. I think you're going to be pretty blown away by the performance you get.
You know, the way we talk to computers has completely fundamentally changed. We've gone from giving them these super rigid, unforgiving orders to having actual creative conversations. This is the story of that incredible journey. Really, when you boil it all down, the entire history of computing is about this one simple shift. We moved from the world on the left, where we had to feed machines these really precise physical instructions, over to the world on the right, where we can just chat with them, like they're a creative partner. It's a huge leap, right? I mean, from a piece of cardboard with little holes punched in it to an AI that can rate a song for you. How in the world did we cross that gap? Well, that's the story of modern tech. Okay, so to get this, we've got to go way back. Back to a time when computers were these giant, complicated beasts, and it was our job, not theirs, to do all the hard work of understanding. We had to speak their language. In the very beginning, everything was clunky and physical. First, we were literally flipping switches, on, off, on, off. Then came punch cards, where, get this, one single mistake on one card could ruin your entire program. And even the command line, which felt like a huge step forward, was so unforgiving. You had to memorize these exact cryptic commands, and one little typo meant, nope, start all over. And this quote just nails how fast things were moving. Think about that. By the 1980s, something that was cutting edge just a decade or two before was already ancient history, something the old-timers would tell stories about. Technology was just sprinting ahead. But then, a visual revolution changed literally everything. This was the moment that computing was yanked out of the hands of lab-coded specialists and put into the hands of, well, everybody. And this was the absolute game changer. Instead of having to memorize this secret language of text commands, you could suddenly see your options right there on the screen. It was visual, it was intuitive, it was a total revolution. Just think about the difference for a second. On one hand, you've got a blank screen with a blinking cursor, basically staring at you, demanding you know what to type. On the other hand, you have a friendly little desktop with folders and icons you can actually reach out and interact with. This wasn't just a small improvement. It was a completely new way of thinking about how humans and computers could work together. 1984. That's the year this whole idea went mainstream with the Apple Macintosh. And it's no exaggeration. It completely blew people's minds. There are stories from the launch event where people in the audience literally gasped out loud when they saw a mouse being used to click and open a folder for the first time. It seemed like magic. Okay, so we learned to control computers with clicks. Awesome. But the next giant leap was learning how to ask them for things. And the tool that taught us all that new skill? The search engine. It is so easy to forget this, but before search engines got really good, the internet was like a massive library with no card catalog. You either knew the exact, specific address of the book you wanted, or you had to just wander through these endless lists hoping you'd stumble upon it. Search engines give us a way to just ask. And get this. Every single time you type something into a search bar, you're practicing a skill. Those keywords you type, they are a form of a prompt. It might be primitive, but you're instructing this incredibly complex system to go find something just using your own words. This was a crucial step towards having a real conversation. So from typing keywords, the next logical step was just to speak them out loud. This is where the interface, the keyboard and mouse, really started to disappear, and the machine began to sound a whole lot more human. You know the drill, right? Siri, Alexa, Google Assistant. All of a sudden, our devices had names, and they had voices. We started having these simple little back-and-forth chats. They were basic, for sure, but we weren't typing or clicking anymore. We were talking. And this is just so telling, isn't it? Our first instinct, as humans, was to try and connect with this new voice, to see what it was capable of. Kids would ask it about love, and the machine would politely explain that it couldn't feel. It perfectly captured our deep desire for connection and the very clear pre-programmed limits of that early AI. And that brings us right up to today. All those previous steps, from switches to clicks to keywords to voice commands, they were all leading to this exact moment. A moment where the conversation has become so sophisticated that it's created an entirely new and essential skill. This right here was the major turning point. All of a sudden, the quality of the computer's answer depended directly on the quality of our question. It wasn't just about giving an order anymore. It was about guiding the AI, collaborating with it, maybe even inspiring it. And the difference is just staggering. If you ask a simple, boring question, you get a simple, boring answer. But if you learn how to craft a detailed, context-rich prompt, you can unlock this incredible creativity. You're no longer just a user. You're more like a director, and the AI is your infinitely capable actor waiting for your script. And that, my friends, is prompt engineering. It's the art and the science of talking to AI. It's the modern version of knowing which command to type or which icon to click. It's the essential skill for making your way in this new conversational world. When you zoom out and look back at the whole journey, you see this one clear line connecting everything. Every single innovation, from the electrical switch to the punch card, from the mouse to the search bar, it's all been about one thing: removing the friction, making the conversation between us and our machines more natural, more powerful, and ultimately more human. So think about this. There was a time when knowing how to drive a car was a rare, very specialized skill. Now, it's just how most of us get around. Learning how to talk to AI, how to prompt, is becoming that next essential skill. So the only question left is, are you ready to get behind the wheel?
Let's talk about prompting. Now, if that word makes you think of some super technical, complicated skill only AI experts have, well, I've got some great news for you. It's actually a superpower you're already using every single day. And honestly, you're probably a pro at it and you don't even know it.
Okay, let's just jump right in. I'm about to show you a few different phrases. As they pop up, just think, what's the connection here? What's the one thing they all share?
Simple enough, right? You ask a friend this question. You're giving them a little instruction, a little request for information, and that, right there, that's a prompt. A perfect, everyday prompt.
Or what about this one? When you tell your GPS app to find the fastest way home, you're not just, talking to your phone. You're giving a clear command to a machine to get a very specific result. See? It's the same basic skill.
Okay, here's a more creative one. You type this into an AI art generator. Yeah, it feels all futuristic and cool, but at its very core, it's the exact same thing we've been doing. You are asking for something specific.
And this, shouting a command in a voice-controlled video game. It's urgent, it's direct, and it gets an immediate reaction inside the game. The pattern is pretty clear by now, isn't it? These are all prompts.
So, the first big idea to wrap our heads around is super simple. Prompts are absolutely everywhere. They aren't just for AI, they're literally woven into the fabric of how we communicate with everything and everyone.
When you break it down, a prompt is just an instruction. It's that basic little unit we use to get information or to get an action from someone or something. The definition is really broad because the action itself is just so incredibly versatile.
And this is where it gets really cool, because it shows just how broad this idea is. A prompt isn't just about typing text, raising your hand in a class. Yep, that's a prompt. It tells the teacher, hey, I have a question. Even just a simple nod is a prompt that says, I get it, keep going. It's all about signaling what you want.
This all brings us to what I like to call the arts of asking. We are absolute masters of prompting in our daily lives, especially when we need to get something from another person.
Just think about ordering food at a restaurant. It is a perfect back and forth of prompts. You start with a big, broad question. The server responds. Then you refine your prompt based on their answer. Then they ask for clarification, which is another prompt, and you specify your request even more. That whole conversation is just a series of little prompts, all designed to get you the perfect meal.
It's the exact same thing in a classroom, right? When a student asks a teacher to explain something more simply or to break it down step by step, they're not just asking a question. They are actively prompting the teacher to change their output, to make it easier to understand. It's just this natural way we have of refining information as we go.
So what's really fascinating is how we've taken this totally natural human skill and just seamlessly applied it to the technology we use every day. We're already prompting machines all the time, constantly.
Just look at these parallels. This skill you use to get a book recommendation from a librarian, it is the exact same skill you use to type a search into Google. The way you'd ask a friend for directions has just been handed over to your map app. The tech has changed, for sure, but our fundamental way of asking for what we want, the prompt, has stayed exactly the same.
Okay, so if we're already so good at this, what's all the fuss about prompt engineering and AI? Well, that leads us to the one key difference. We're having a new kind of conversation now.
This really is the big question, isn't it? If we are such natural prompters, why do we sometimes get such weird or totally unhelpful results from an AI? What's the missing piece of the puzzle? And here it is. It's all about context. See, we humans operate in what's called a high-context world. When I talk to a friend, they know my background, my sense of humor, all are shared inside jokes. I can be vague and they'll still get what I mean. But in AI, it has none of that. It's low context. You have to be super explicit and specific because there's just no shared understanding there to fill in the blanks for you. Which brings us to our final and maybe most important point. You don't need to go learn some brand new, difficult skill to talk to an AI. You just need to adapt the one you've already mastered. Seriously, think about it. All those times you've had to ask for clearer directions or clarify what a teacher wants on an assignment or ordered a ridiculously complicated coffee, you were training. You are honing your natural ability to be a prompt engineer and you didn't even realize it.
I absolutely love this analogy. Nobody reads a physics textbook to figure out how to ride a bike, right? No, you get on, you wobble, maybe you fall, you adjust, and pretty soon you're cruising down the street without even thinking about it. Prompting an AI is exactly the same. It's all about practice and just observing what works and then refining it. It's not about some complex theory. So just remember this. The ability to ask a clear question is a genuine skill. It's a real talent, and you have it. You use it every single day. The only question now is, knowing how powerful that skill really is, how are you going to use it next?
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to break down the 3 fundamental ways you talk to an AI. And honestly, mastering these is the key to unlocking exactly what you want from powerful tools like ChatGPT, Gemini, and all the others.
So let's just dive right in. It all really boils down to a simple question. When you want an AI to do something for you, how do you actually ask? What do you type into that little box to make the magic happen?
Well, that whole act of asking actually has a name. We call it prompting. It's just our way of communicating our request to the AI in a structure that it can understand.
Think of a prompt as the starting point. It's that initial instruction you give the AI that gets the ball rolling on any task or conversation you want to have.
Now here's the thing. While you can ask for literally anything, most of your requests are going to fall into one of three basic categories. And understanding these categories is, no joke, the secret to getting much, much better results.
And here they are: instructions, questions, and examples. Each one of these makes the AI behave in a completely different way. It's like it puts on a different hat to help you out, depending on what you ask.
So let's break down how each of these prompt types actually casts the AI in a specific role, turning it into the exact kind of assistant you need for the job. First up is the instruction prompt. This is your direct, no-nonsense command. You're telling the AI exactly what to do, and you usually start with a clear action word, a verb. For instance, asking it to write a short poem about volcanoes, or summarize this article, or calculate this budget. See? You're just giving it a clear, straightforward task to complete. So, the crucial point to remember is that when you give an instruction, the AI acts like a diligent worker. It doesn't really think for itself. It just follows your directions precisely to get the job done.
All right, let's move on to our second type, the question prompt. This is what you use when you need information or an explanation about something that's already known. It's all about fact-finding.
These are the classic questions, right? Things you might have asked in science class. Why do volcanoes erupt? Or what is photosynthesis? You're not asking it to create something new, but to explain something that already exists. And notice the role change here. The AI switches from being a worker to being a knowledgeable tutor. It's retrieving and explaining information from its enormous knowledge base, just like a teacher would.
And our third and final core type is the example-based prompt. This is where things get really clever. Instead of just telling the AI what to do, you show it. You provide a sample for it to imitate.
This is so incredibly useful whenever you need to match a specific format, or a certain tone, or a complex pattern. You could just give it an email and say, write a reply in this exact same formal style.
With an example prompt, the AI takes on its final role. It becomes a skilled imitator. It analyzes the pattern, the language, the whole structure you provide, and then generates a response that matches it perfectly.
So let's recap that really quick. An instruction turns the AI into a worker for getting tasks done. A question makes it a tutor for finding facts, and an example turns it into an imitator for matching a specific style. 3 prompts, 3 very different and very useful roles.
Okay, but the real power comes when you stop using these in isolation. Let's see what happens when you start combining these types to get even more complex and creative results.
Seriously, the magic really happens when you mix and match these prompt types inside a single request. By doing this, you can get incredibly specific and nuanced answers from the AI.
Take a look at this fantastic example. Explain the French Revolution like a TikTok script. You see what's happening there? You have an instruction, explain, combined with an example of a style like a TikTok script. It's a brilliant fusion that gets you a highly creative result.
So, knowing all this, how should you approach prompting in your everyday life? Well, let's frame this as your own personal prompting toolbox.
Here's a great way to think about it. It's kind of like cooking. Your prompt is the recipe. The information you give it, those are the ingredients, and the AI's output is the final dish. A good, clear recipe leads to a delicious result.
Or you can think of it as a toolbox with different tools for different jobs. The hammer represents your direct instructions, perfect for when you just need to get something done. The screwdriver is for precise questions, letting you zero in on specific info. And the paintbrush lets you apply creative styles using examples. The real skill is knowing which tool or combination of tools to use for the job.
The biggest takeaway here is that understanding these 3 prompt types puts you firmly in control of your conversations with AI. You have the tools, you know the roles, so the only question left is, which tool are you going to pick up first?
So, we're all using AI these days, right? But let's be real for a second. Are you really getting the most out of it? In this explainer, we're going to totally transform your AI conversations, and we'll do it by mastering one simple but super powerful tool, the prompt. You know that feeling? You ask an AI a question, and what you get back is just a mess. It's long, it's all over the place, or maybe it's just completely useless. It's a super common frustration. And guess what? It almost always comes down to one thing: the way we ask. There's this old saying from the early days of computing, and it has never been more true than it is right now with AI. Garbage in, garbage out. It's that simple. The quality of the answer you get back is a direct reflection of the quality of your prompt. So, you want better answers? Well, we've got to start asking better questions.
And that really gets to the heart of the problem, doesn't it? Messy prompts. When our questions are vague, the AI can't help but give us a vague answer back. The good news is, the solution is built on two key pillars we're going to dive into today: structure and clarity.
Just look at this example. Someone asked the AI to explain climate change. And, predictably, they got back this huge, rambling essay. So they just tweaked the prompt a tiny bit. All they added was, in 3 bullet points. And boom, suddenly the answer was crystal clear and super focused. That one little change in structure made all the difference in the world. All right, so let's dig into that first pillar, structure. Think of it like this, okay? You wouldn't tell a friend who's trying to find your house to just kind of head south, right? No way. You'd give them a map, you'd give them clear turn-by-turn directions. We need to start doing the exact same thing for our AI. So, what do I even mean by structure? It's really just giving the AI a clear format, a logical sequence to follow. It's how we tell the AI not just what we want, but how we want it all laid out, how we want it presented. And the best part is, you can do this with really simple tools you already know. Just ask for things in numbered lists, or bullet points, or as step-by-step instructions. Each one of these acts like a little guide, basically forcing the AI to organize its thoughts into a nice, neat, predictable format for you. For instance, check this out. A student asked, "Give me 5 steps to bake a cake in bulleted points." And what did they get back? A perfect, easy-to-follow recipe card. That right there is structure in action. It takes something that could be complicated and makes the information so easy to use. Okay, but a good map isn't everything, right? You also have to know where you're going. And that brings us to our second pillar, clarity. This is all about giving the AI specific details, finding the right balance, and this is key, giving it the context it needs to really understand what you're trying to do. Now, what's so interesting here is this idea of balance. On one hand, being too vague, like just saying, "Tell me a story," is obviously not going to work. But you know what's just as bad? Overloading the AI. Imagine asking for a report that's funny but serious, short but detailed, and for a scientist but also for kids. The AI just gets confused because the instructions are fighting with each other. The goal is to find that sweet spot right in the middle. So, what's the secret sauce for hitting that sweet spot of clarity? It's one word: context. When you tell the AI who you are and why you need the information, you're giving it the final, absolutely crucial pieces of the puzzle. That's what lets it deliver a response that's truly tailored just for you.
Let me show you a really powerful example. If you just type "explain gravity," you're probably going to get a textbook answer filled with physics jargon. But watch what happens when we add a little context. The new prompt is, "explain gravity to a 10-year-old using a playground example." See what we did there? We told it the audience and even what kind of analogy to use. And the result? It was amazing. The AI came up with this brilliant, creative answer, comparing gravity to the feeling you get when you go down a slide. It's something any 10-year-old can instantly get. That is the power of context. Okay, time to put it all together. Let's take a truly terrible prompt and transform it into a fantastic one, just by applying what we've learned about structure and clarity. So here's our before prompt. Tell me about history. I mean, wow, this is just impossibly broad, right? What history? Whose history? For what purpose? The AI literally has no idea where to even begin with that. Okay, now let's build a better one. First, we define the task. Summarize World War II. Much better. Now let's add some structure, in 5 key bullet points. Next, we specify the tone. Use simple language. And finally, we give it that all-important context. This is for a school project. See? Look how clear and powerful that is now. We've given the AI a perfect roadmap to get us exactly what we need. So, what's the big takeaway from all this? It's that you are in complete control of your AI conversations. Seriously. By mastering these 2 simple principles, structure and clarity, you can stop getting those generic, useless answers and start getting exactly what you need every single time. So let's just recap the big ideas one last time. We use structure to get predictable answers. Think of that as giving a furniture maker a detailed blueprint.
And we use clarity to get useful answers. That's like telling them what room the furniture is for and who's going to be using it. When you put those two together, you get the exact result you were hoping for.
You know, this quote from a student just hits the nail on the head. I realized AI is not confusing, it is my messy prompts that confuse it. That's the whole mindset shift right there. The AI isn't confused, we're confusing it with our messy prompts. The moment we get organized in how we ask, the AI's answers get organized too. So as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with one final thought to chew on. Now that you're armed with the power of structure and clarity, how are you going to improve your very next prompt?
All right, today we're talking about a simple trick that's going to totally change how you interact with AI. It's called role-based prompting, and trust me, it's a real game changer. So let's kick things off with a problem I'm sure you've run into. You ask an AI for help, and the answer you get back is, well, it's just so flat, right? It's generic, it's not very helpful, and it definitely isn't what you were actually looking for.
But here's the thing. There's a really simple fix. The secret is to stop just asking the AI questions and to start directing it. And you do that by giving it a specific role or persona right at the very beginning of your prompt. Okay, so what does that even mean, giving an AI a persona? Let's get into it.
Basically, it's just a simple command you put at the start of your prompt that tells the AI who it should be. So when you say something like, act as a doctor, or you are a physics expert, you're not just asking a question anymore. You're actually shaping its entire point of view, its tone, the words it uses, everything. You know, a great way to think about it is like this. You're the director, and the AI is your actor. Your question? That's the script. The script doesn't change, but the performance you get back, well, that completely depends on the role you give your actor. All right, let's actually see this in action. You're going to be amazed at how dramatically the AI's answer changes based on the persona you give it. Seriously, this is where the magic happens. So let's use a super simple question. Explain gravity. I mean, we all kind of get it, right? But just watch what happens when we ask the AI to answer that same question from 3 totally different perspectives. And look at this. The results are so different. If you ask a teacher, you get a simple analogy. It's like an invisible pull. If you ask a scientist, boom, you get the technical formulas. And then ask a poet, and you get this beautiful metaphor. The earth hugs everything close. It's the exact same question, but you get 3 completely different and totally valid answers. How cool is that? And that's really the key takeaway here. Each role has its own job, its own function. A teacher is there to explain things. A coach is there to motivate you. A comedian, to make you laugh. So by picking the right role, you get to control exactly what kind of answer you're going to get.
Okay, but this isn't all about serious academic stuff. You can also use this to get super creative and, just have some fun with it.
Seriously, think outside the box here. You can ask the AI to be pretty much anyone you can dream up. Tell it to speak like Shakespeare, or be Sherlock Holmes and solve this puzzle. You could even have it act as a stand-up comedian. The sky is literally the limit.
Oh, and check this out. This is a great real-world example. Some student asked an AI, be Shakespeare and explain TikTok. And what they got back was this absolutely hilarious poem in Old English, all about a modern social media app. I mean, that just perfectly shows the creative power you unlock when you mix a classic persona with a modern idea.
Okay, that's the fun stuff. Now let's talk about some real-life, practical ways you can use this like today. Things you can try the minute you're done with this. So where can you start? Well, if you're stuck on homework, try Be My Math Tutor. Got a paper to write? Be an editor and have it fix your grammar and style. If you're getting ready for a job search, be an interview coach. Or hey, even planning a trip becomes way easier when you say, Be My Travel Guide. Every single one of these prompts gives you an instant, dedicated expert. It really is like having all of the world's experts sitting in one room, just waiting for you to point and say, I need you. The AI becomes this incredible, multi-talented assistant. All you have to do is tell it which hat to wear for your specific question. All right, so let's wrap this up. What are the big things you need to remember about role-based prompting? So why does this matter so much? Well, for one, you get answers that are way more targeted, useful, and personal. You also get to control the tone, the style, and even the depth of the response.
And this makes the AI an incredibly powerful tool for everything: studying, being creative, practicing for something. But I think the biggest thing is this: you stop being just a passive user and you become the active director of your AI. So now it's over to you. Time to go experiment. The only question left is, what's the very next role you're going to give your AI? Go give it a shot. I think you'll be amazed at how this one simple trick can completely change the way you learn and create. All right, let's dive into a skill that's going to make a huge difference in your life: how to stop getting those frustratingly vague answers from AI and start getting exactly what you're looking for. This is going to be good. You know that feeling, right? You ask an AI for help, you're excited, and what you get back is, well, totally useless. It's generic, maybe it's completely off topic. It's a super common problem, but believe it or not, there's a really simple technique to fix it for good. Okay, so here's the secret. This is the big mindset shift. The number one mistake people make is treating that first AI response like it's the finished product. It's not. You've got to see it for what it is: a rough draft. It's just a starting point that you get to shape and improve. So how do we actually shape that rough draft? Well, the technique is called iterative prompting. And no, this isn't about just scrapping your idea and starting from scratch. It's really the art of refining what you've already got. So what does that really mean? Basically, iterative prompting is just the process of asking again, but with small, smart changes each time. Think of it like you're guiding the AI step by step, closer and closer to that perfect, specific answer you need. I absolutely love this analogy. It's a really creative way to think about it. You're not just a user, you're a sculptor. That first prompt, that's just a lump of clay. Every follow-up question you ask is you shaping, refining, and polishing that clay until you've got a masterpiece. And this is a really crucial difference to understand. When you iterate, you're building on what the AI just told you. You're giving it feedback. But if you start over with a brand new question, you throw away all that useful context and you reset the whole conversation. Iteration is a dialogue, not just a bunch of random, disconnected questions. Here's another way to look at it that might click. Think of the AI as a student. If you just gave them a bad grade on their homework, they wouldn't know how to do better next time, right? But if you give them specific feedback like, hey, can you make this part shorter, or add more detail here, they learn. They get better with each draft. And that's exactly what you're doing when you iterate. Okay, so that's all the theory. But what does this actually look like when you're, doing it? Let's walk through a real-world example step by step, and you'll see just how powerful this is. So let's say you want a fitness plan. You might start super general. Give me fitness advice. And you'll get a vague, generic answer. So you iterate. Okay, give me 5 beginner exercises. Much better. But now the descriptions are way too long. So you iterate again. Explain each one in a single sentence. Perfect, now it's focused. And for the final polish, you define the format. Now make this a daily 20-minute plan. And boom. See how we did that? We took a fuzzy idea and turned it into something incredibly specific and useful. You know what's really amazing about this process is that it doesn't just make the AI's answer better, it actually forces us to figure out what we really want. We often start with a vague idea in our own heads, and it's through this process of iteration that we get crystal clear on our own goals. I mean, just think about a really bad prompt, something like, tell me about history. What could you possibly get from that? You're just going to get a giant, generic summary of, well, everything. It's completely useless. But now look at the difference. What if instead you ask something like this? Summarize World War I in 5 points and make sure you include 2 causes and 2 consequences. Instantly, you've given the AI structure, you've given it constraints, and you've given it a really clear goal. The answer you get back is going to be 1,000 times more useful. So now that you're seeing just how powerful this is, let's put together your personal toolkit. When and how should you actually use this technique? Well, the most obvious time is when that first answer is just vague or way off topic. You should also iterate anytime you're thinking, I need more detail here, or you just want a different creative spin on it. And it's an absolute must if you're working on something polished, like an essay or a project, where that first rough draft is never going to be enough. If you only remember one thing from all of this, let it be this simple idea. The secret to getting great answers isn't about writing one single perfect prompt right out of the gate. That's way too much pressure. The secret is repetition and refinement. You just keep tweaking, keep adjusting, and keep guiding. So let's just lock in these key takeaways.
First, and most importantly, that first answer is always just a starting point. Second, remember that iteration is your power tool. It improves both the clarity of your request and the quality of the result. And that all leads to a simple truth. Better prompts just lead to better results. It's that simple.
At the end of the day, getting great results from AI isn't some kind of magic. It's a skill. And like any skill, you get better with practice. So the real question I have for you is, what idea are you going to refine first?
Ever feel like you're just not getting what you want out of AI? You know the answers could be more powerful, more consistent, just plain better? Well, today we're diving into the frameworks that can totally change how you interact with these tools. We're talking about prompt patterns. Let's get right into it. So, what on earth is a prompt pattern? Honestly, the best way to think about it is right here. It's like a recipe for getting a good answer. You know, just like a recipe gives you a step-by-step guide for a perfect cake, a prompt pattern gives you a structured guide to get that perfect response from an AI. It's a proven method, a reliable path. It's basically the secret sauce.
Okay, but why should you even care about these patterns? Well, think about patterns you see everywhere in nature, like the spiral of a seashell or the design on a butterfly's wings. They're proven structures that are efficient and they just plain work. Prompt patterns are exactly like that, reliable structures that are proven to get the job done right.
To put a more formal definition on it, a prompt pattern is just a common, repeatable structure that consistently gets you a high-quality result. So instead of staring at a blank screen every single time, you use a framework. And this saves you time, it cuts down on errors, and it seriously improves the quality of what the AI gives you back. The bottom line is, it's all about working smarter, not harder.
So all of these powerful patterns are really built on three fundamental styles. And if you can understand these three building blocks, you're going to be well on your way to mastering AI communication. So let's break them down, one by one.
First up is something called zero-shot prompting. And that word, shot, it actually comes from machine learning, and it just means the number of examples you give the AI. So zero-shot means exactly that, 0 examples. You're just giving the AI a direct command, a direct question, with no other guidance. You're telling it what to do, but you're not telling it how to do it. And yeah, it's pretty much as simple as it sounds. You just give it instruction and the AI gets to work. It's super direct, it's fast, and is perfect for those straightforward tasks. You know, like, hey, summarize this article for me, or explain the solar system in 3 lines. You're just trusting the AI to figure out the how all on its own.
But what if you need something a little more specific? That's where our next style comes in, few-shot prompting. Here, instead of just telling the AI what to do, you're actually showing it by giving it one or maybe a few examples to steer its response.
You see, the real power of few-shot prompting is all about control. By giving the AI a couple of examples, you can guide it toward a very specific tone or format or style. The AI just looks at your examples and mimics them. This is incredibly useful when you need a particular kind of output, maybe something really formal or super creative, or even just structured in a very specific way.
Imagine this. You show the AI 2 poems by your favorite poet, and then you ask it to write a new poem in that same style. The AI will soak up the rhythm, the vocabulary, the whole structure from your examples. It's kind of like giving it a masterclass right before the main performance.
All right, now for our third and most advanced technique, we've got chain of thought prompting, or COT for short. This is your go-to when you're tackling a really complex problem. Instead of asking for the final answer all at once, you're guiding the AI through a series of smaller, logical steps. You're essentially forcing it to think things through.
And what's so great about chain of thought is that it forces logical reasoning. By making the AI show its work, you're making it connect the dots in a logical sequence. This actually reduces the risk of it taking a lazy shortcut or just making up an answer, what some people call a hallucination. This gives you way more control and dramatically improves accuracy, especially for things like math, science, or complex problem solving.
Let's just look at a super simple example. If you ask, what's 23 times 47, it might give you the right answer, or it might get it wrong. But if you just add, show your work step by step, you force the AI to break down the problem. It'll actually show you the multiplication process, which means you can check its logic and be way more confident in that final reasoned answer.
Okay, so we have our 3 building blocks, zero-shot, few-shot, and chain of thought. The next level up is when we start combining these into reusable assets. And this is where we unlock the real power of templates.
Think about it. Writing every single prompt from scratch is like reinventing the wheel. Every single time. It's time-consuming, and your results can be all over the place. A template, on the other hand, is a reusable format. It saves you time, it makes sure you're consistent, and it just makes your whole workflow so much more efficient. Let me give you a really practical example, the history teacher template. So, imagine you're a history teacher, and you need to create lesson plans every single day on different events. Instead of starting from zero each time, you use this template. For any event, the AI will first summarize it, then explain the causes, and finally describe the impact. The topic might change, but that high-quality structured format, that stays the same. So, now that you understand the pieces, it's time for you to become the architect. This is all about moving from just using patterns to actually building your own custom frameworks that are perfectly tailored to whatever you need to do. And it's really just a simple 3-step process. First, you test. Go ahead and experiment with different patterns and styles. Second, you refine, see what works best, tweak it, and make it even better. And finally, when you have something that you're really happy with, you save it for reuse. And just like that, that successful prompt is now your own personal template. And look, the real magic here isn't just using these patterns one at a time, it's about combining them. For instance, you could use a few-shot example to set the style for just one step inside a bigger chain of thought process. By mixing and matching, you can create these incredibly sophisticated and powerful custom tools for pretty much any task you can think of. So, we've covered the patterns, we've covered the styles, and we've covered the power of building your own templates. The only thing left to do now is to actually apply it. And that leaves us with one final and pretty important question to think about. What is the first prompt template you are going to build?
Today, we're diving into something really cool. What happens when you pair up artificial intelligence with pure human imagination? And I'm not talking about AI as just some simple tool. We're going to look at it as a real creative partner, one that can help you build stories, poems, and even entire worlds. So let's see what that actually looks like. So, have you ever just stared at a blank page, hit that creative wall, and wished you had a brainstorming buddy who was around 24/7? Well, that's kind of the promise here. Using these AIs for creative work is like having an endless well of ideas, turning that blank page into a total playground of possibilities.
Okay, so the first thing we've got to do is just shift our thinking a little bit. We need to stop seeing AI as just a machine that follows commands. Instead, let's really explore what it means to treat it like a genuine creative partner.
Think about it like this. Your AI partner can be your brainstormer, just tossing out totally new concepts. Or it can be your co-writer, jumping in with a plot twist you never saw coming. It can even be your muse, drafting up some poetry or dialogue to get you going. And it goes even further. It can be a practice partner, helping you learn a new language by actually having a conversation with you. It is just an incredibly versatile sidekick. So where do you even start? Well, it all begins with the core ingredients of any story. If we can just feed the AI these simple, fundamental building blocks, we're giving it everything it needs to put together a whole narrative.
When you get right down to it, every great story answers 3 basic questions: a who, a where, and a what. Who's our character? Where are they? And what happens to them? If you can define those 3 simple things, you're giving the AI a really powerful foundation to build on.
Let's actually see this in action. Okay, picture this. A shy dragon. Not your typical hero, right? Now, let's put this dragon in a shiny, futuristic city. And the plot? The dragon has to learn how to be brave. See? Just with those 3 simple ideas, a really unique story starts taking shape in your head, and the AI has everything it needs to bring it to life.
Okay, so once you've got that foundation, this is where the real magic happens. Now you get to be the director, and you can control the entire mood of the story with just a single command. Let's take one simple idea and see how much we can change it.
Here's our core idea. It's simple, it's sweet, it's got a ton of potential. A lonely robot finds a friend in the big city. Now, if you just give this to an AI, it'll probably write a pretty heartwarming story. But what if we want something else? Just by adding those 3 little words, make it funny, the whole thing changes. Suddenly, our robot might be a total klutz, and maybe its new friend is a sarcastic pigeon. The story turns into a series of hilarious accidents. It's the same core idea, but a totally different feel.
And now let's flip the switch completely. Ask the AI to make it scary. That search for a friend suddenly becomes super suspenseful. Maybe the new friend isn't who they say they are, or the city itself starts to feel like it's hunting our little robot. The big takeaway here is that you are in control of the emotional journey.
And this doesn't just work for new ideas. You can do this with stories you already know and love. Imagine asking an AI to rewrite Goldilocks, but as a terrifying horror story where she breaks into the wrong house. Or what about Cinderella as a sci-fi adventure, swapping her glass slippers for some high-tech boots on Mars? Seriously, the possibilities are just endless. But hey, being creative isn't just about telling stories, right? An AI partner can expand your toolkit into totally new areas, everything from writing poetry to practicing a performance. You could ask for a poem that sounds like it was written by Emily Dickinson, or you could generate this super tense dialogue between a clever detective and a thief who's backed into a corner. You can even use it to practice your Spanish by having a full-on interactive conversation.
All right, now for the really fun part. Let's see what happens when we just throw caution to the wind and combine some wildly different ideas into one single, super imaginative prompt. Let's build a totally unique prompt, one layer at a time. We'll start with something with a lot of energy, a classic rock and roll battle of the bands. Pretty cool. But why stop there? Now, let's just, I don't know, add dinosaurs. Bam! Suddenly, our rock battle is prehistoric. You've got a T-Rex shredding on guitar and a pterodactyl banging on the drums. It's getting wonderfully weird. And for the final, absolutely absurd twist, let's set this whole thing in a school cafeteria at lunchtime. A rock battle with dinosaurs surrounded by mystery meat and little cartons of milk. This just goes to show you that your prompts can be as wild and bizarre as you want them to be. Here's another fantastic example of mixing things up. You've got the super logical, deductive mind of Sherlock Holmes clashing with the dramatic, flowery language of Shakespeare, and the entire debate has to be a poem. That's a really sophisticated, creative challenge that an AI can actually pull off, blending two completely different voices into something new. Ultimately, what this all comes down to is that these tools are a direct extension of your own creativity. You know, the AI might be the instrument, but you're the one composing the music. You know, sometimes the most powerful creativity comes from having constraints. The 6-word story is a perfect example of this. It's a challenge to tell a whole emotional story using just a handful of words. This is probably the most famous example there is. In just 6 words, it tells this heartbreaking story of hope and loss. You can challenge an AI to create something with that same kind of short, emotional punch. It really proves that powerful storytelling isn't about how long it is, it's about the impact. So we've seen how AI can be your creative partner, your tool, and basically a limitless playground for whatever you can dream up. From simple building blocks to the most bizarre worlds you can imagine, the only real boundary is you. The tools are right there, waiting. So the real question is, what story are you going to create?
So, what if you could completely transform the way you study? I mean, what if you had a powerful new assistant right at your fingertips? Well, today we're going to crack open your very own AI study toolkit.
Oh yeah, we've all been there, right? You're staring at this absolute mountain of text, or maybe a really complex topic, or just a huge pile of messy notes, and you're thinking, where do I even begin? It can feel, yeah, totally overwhelming.
But what if you didn't have to climb that mountain alone? What if you had a partner to help you out? Well, that's exactly where AI comes in. And look, it's not about finding a shortcut. It's about having a real-deal study partner.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll get to know our new AI study buddy. Then, we're going to dive into 3 super powerful tools in the toolkit: mastering concepts, acing your practice, and organizing your thoughts. And we'll wrap it all up with what is probably the most important part: the rules of the road for using this stuff responsibly. First up, let's meet your new AI study buddy. It's all about setting the right expectations for what this tool can actually do and what it can't.
Okay, if you remember one thing from this whole explainer, let it be this. You've got to think of AI as a guide, maybe a friend or even a personal tutor. Its whole job is to help you build your confidence and really understand the material. It's here to supplement your hard work, not replace it. That part's key.
All right, let's get into the good stuff. Tool number 1 in our kit is all about mastering complex concepts. This is where AI basically becomes your own personal explainer, and it's on call 24/7. And this is where the magic happens, because you are in the driver's seat. Need that full-blown university-level explanation of Newton's third law? You got it. Or, hey, maybe you need it broken down like you're a 9th grader with simple, everyday examples. All you have to do is ask. You get to tailor the complexity to whatever you need in that moment.
And that right there, That's the power of a great analogy. Instead of some dry textbook definition that you'll forget in 5 minutes, you can ask for a concept to be explained using stuff you already know, like lemon juice and baking soda. It just makes those abstract ideas concrete and way easier to remember.
So you've got the concepts down. What's next? Well, practice, of course. So let's look at tool number 2. Practice makes perfect. This is how you turn that AI into your personal quiz master.
And the process is so simple. Seriously, it's basically 3 steps. 1, you feed it your lecture notes or whatever you're reading. 2, you can have it explain the main ideas back to you just to make sure you're on the same page. And 3, you just say, okay, now quiz me on what you just told me.
But here's the really cool part. You can customize the whole thing. Want to start with some multiple choice questions to get warmed up? Done. Ready to really test your memory with short answer questions? No problem. You can even tell it to ramp up the difficulty. Easy, medium, or hard, and generate full-on mock tests to get you ready for the real deal. I love this example because it shows how you can combine 2 tools into one awesome prompt. First, you get a simple explanation of a pretty complex process, right? Then you immediately test if you actually understood it with a few targeted questions. I mean, think about how efficient that is for studying.
All right, on to our third and final tool. And this one is a lifesaver. It's all about going from total chaos to pure clarity by letting AI be your personal organizer.
Hey, remember that monster 30-page reading assignment we talked about at the start? Well, imagine feeding that entire thing to an AI and getting back a perfect, crisp, section-by-section summary. We're talking about a massive time saver when it comes to revision.
Seriously, this is like having an organizational superpower. You can give it your messy, scribbled notes and get back a clean, beautiful outline. Or, let's say you have scattered points from your research. It can help you structure them into a coherent essay. You can even get it to create a mind map for you. And the best part? All these conversations are saved, so you can always go back to them later.
Okay, so we've seen just how powerful this toolkit can be. And that brings us to what is, without a doubt, the most important section of this whole explainer, the rules of the road. Because, you know what they say? With great power comes the need to use it responsibly. Let's be perfectly clear on this. No beating around the bush. If you copy and paste content generated by an AI and turn it in for a grade as your own work, that is plagiarism. Period. End of story. No school, no university is going to be okay with that. You've got to remember, at the end of the day, AI is just a tool. It's there to assist your learning, to help you, but it is not a substitute for your own critical thinking and your own effort. The real work, that still has to come from you. I absolutely love this way of thinking about it. AI is like a calculator, but for words. A calculator is an amazing tool, right? It speeds things up, but it's totally useless if you don't understand the basic principles of math. You still need to know which buttons to press, and more importantly, why you're pressing them. So let's just boil it all down to the simple do's and don'ts. Do use it to get practice questions. Do use it to get a fresh explanation of something. And do use it for revision and summarizing. Absolutely. But the big don't. Never ever just copy and paste its output for an assignment or use it to cheat. That's the bright red line you just don't cross. So, there you have it. We've unpacked the whole toolkit. You've got a personal explainer, a quiz master, and a super organizer, all right there at your fingertips. AI is your new, powerful assistant. So the only question left is, what are you going to ask it to do first? So we've all had some fun with AI, right? But what if I told you its real superpower isn't just about writing quirky poems or spitting out trivia answers? Today, we're going to look past all that. We're going to dive into how you can turn AI into a seriously powerful problem-solving partner. Okay, let's really break this down. On one side, you have a simple task like asking AI to write a poem. It's creative, it's fun, but it's pretty straightforward. Now look at the other side. Planning a party on a tight budget. Whoa, that takes logic, some serious planning, and you have to think things through step by step. And that is where AI can be an absolute game changer, but only if you know the right way to ask. All right, here's the game plan for this explainer. We'll start with AI as a problem solver, then jump into the how-to with structured prompting. After that, we'll look at getting multiple perspectives from AI. And this next one is super important, questioning the answers it gives you. We'll wrap it all up with a little challenge for you at the end. All right, first up, AI, your problem solver. This is really all about a shift in mindset, you know? We're moving away from just asking for a quick, simple answer and toward finding real, structured solutions.
So what's the secret here? What's the key to unlocking all this power? Well, it isn't about asking a bigger question. It's about asking a smarter one. The real trick is to ask structured, step-by-step questions. You can't just dump a massive problem on the AI and expect a perfect answer. No, you have to be its guide. You have to walk it through the process. And this approach isn't just for one specific thing. We're talking about everything from tough math and science problems to those brain-bending logic puzzles. It's also a lifesaver for school and work stuff, and even for those messy, real-life challenges that we all run into. Okay, let's get into the nuts and bolts. Section 2 is all about structured prompting techniques. This is where we're going to learn exactly how to guide the AI step by step to get the kinds of solutions we're actually looking for.
The most important technique to know here is called chain of thought prompting, and it's a pretty cool idea. You basically tell the AI to think out loud, to show its work, just like a math class. You make it break the problem down and explain its reasoning as it goes. So you're not just getting the final answer, you're getting the process. It's a lot like how we tackle big problems ourselves, and it makes it way less likely that the AI will get confused or, just make stuff up. And this is pretty much how it works. Simple, right? First, you give it the big, messy problem. Then, and this is the key part, you tell it, hey, break this down for me into smaller pieces. And finally, you have it solve each one of those little pieces one after the other. It takes something that feels totally overwhelming and turns it into a clear, step-by-step plan. Okay, check out this perfect real-world example. A student could ask, create a study schedule for 5 subjects, allocate time based on how hard they are, and make a balanced weekly plan. See the difference there? It's so much more specific than just, help me study. You're giving the AI clear instructions and rules to follow, which means you're going to get a way more useful and personalized answer back.
All right, let's take this to the next level. Now we're talking about using AI for some serious brainstorming, to get a way deeper understanding of something by looking at it from a bunch of different perspectives.
And here's the thing you have to remember. You never have to settle for just one answer. You can actually tell the AI to be your creative partner. Ask it to come up with a whole bunch of different solutions to the same problem. Suddenly, it's not just an answer machine, it's a powerful brainstorming tool. Take this prompt, for example. Give me 5 different ways a school can reduce its plastic use. A question like that forces the AI to think outside the box, right? It'll give you a bunch of options, maybe recycling programs, maybe reusable bottle ideas, and then you get to be the one to look them over and decide what's best. Okay, but we can push this even further. Let's start with a really big, basic question. Something like, why is the ocean important? Now, anyone can give a simple answer to that. But real, deep understanding, that comes from looking at the question from a few different angles.
And this is where it gets really, really cool. You can actually tell the AI to wear different hats, to adopt different personas. So look at this. A scientist will tell you the ocean is vital for our planet's ecosystem. A historian, they're going to focus on how it was the highway for global trade and exploration. And a poet is going to see this source of incredible beauty and inspiration. By doing this, you get this rich, 3D understanding, not just some flat, boring answer.
Okay, we need to talk about something that is absolutely crucial. I'm serious, this might be the most important part. You have to question the AI's answers. Remember, it's your tool, but you are the boss. You're the critical thinker in this relationship.
And let's be crystal clear about this. AI is an amazing tool, but it is not perfect. It can make mistakes. It absolutely will make mistakes. It might get a date wrong or completely misunderstand an idea. And your job is to never forget that.
But here's a little pro tip for you. You can actually turn the AI on itself. After it spits out an answer, hit it with a follow-up prompt like this one. Check your own answer for any errors in your facts or reasoning. You'd be surprised how often it'll actually catch its own mistakes when you ask it to double-check.
So think of yourself as the final editor. Every time you get a response back, you need to run it through a mental checklist. Is this factually correct? Does the logic actually hold up? Is there some kind of hidden bias here? And is this the whole story or is something missing? This is where your brain, your human intelligence, is absolutely essential.
And that brings us right to our final section, and of course, a challenge for you. This whole thing is about more than just getting answers, right? It's about becoming an active collaborator with AI.
When it all comes down to it, this is the big takeaway. The goal isn't just to get fast answers from a computer. It's to build a real partnership between you and the AI, one that helps you think better, deeper, and more critically.
So, I'm going to leave you with a big question to chew on. As this tech gets woven into everything we do, does it actually make us better thinkers? Or does it just make us lazy, letting us outsource our own brain power? It's a tough one, and honestly, the answer probably depends on how we choose to use it.
Hey, come on in. I'm so glad you're here. Think of this as your own personal art lesson. Today, we're going to do something incredible. We're going to take the ideas bouncing around in your head and turn them into actual masterpieces. Ready to get started? All right, grab a seat. Here's the most important thing you need to know today, the big secret. When it comes to AI art, your words are your paintbrush. Yeah, that's right. The text you type, the phrases you come up with, that is the tool that creates everything. So you can forget about messy paints and canvases for a bit. Your keyboard? That's your new studio. Okay, so where does every great piece of art begin? With a basic idea, right? A simple sketch. That's exactly where we're going to start. Let's see just how powerful a few extra descriptive words can be, how they can take a fuzzy concept and bring it into sharp focus. Just look at the difference here. It's night and day. On the left, we just told the AI, a dog. I mean, what is it supposed to do with that? It could be any dog in the world. But on the right, wow. Now we have a story. We have a scene. That's the difference between a random doodle and a detailed sketch. So what exactly do we do to get that amazing result? Well, we got specific. We gave it a breed, a golden retriever. We told it the texture, fluffy. We gave it an age, puppy, an action, playing, and even a setting, in autumn leaves. Every single one of those details is a crystal clear instruction that guides the AI, getting the final image so much closer to what you were picturing in your head. Let's try this with something a little bigger, a little more epic. A dragon flying over a city at night. That's cool, for sure, but it's also kind of generic, you know? But watch this. Look what happens when we just add a few details about the world around it. Decorated with festive, multicolored lights. Whoa! All of a sudden, the entire mood changes. You start asking questions. Is it a holiday? A festival? That one little detail about the setting completely changes the story of the picture. All right, so you've totally got the hang of describing your subject. Now, let's add another layer. Let's talk about the overall feel of the piece. This is kind of like an artist choosing their medium. Are they going to use oil paints or watercolors or maybe even digital spray paint? With AI, we call this finding your artistic style. This is a perfect example and one of my favorite shortcuts. The phrase Pixar style does so much heavy lifting. Instantly, the AI knows what you want. A character with those big, expressive eyes, super smooth textures, and that signature friendly animated vibe. It's like a whole visual universe packed into just 2 little words. And get this, you can even channel the great masters themselves. By saying Van Gogh style, you're not just asking for a picture of a dog. No way. You're asking for those wild, swirling brushstrokes, that thick paint, that emotional energy. The AI actually understands that artist's unique fingerprint and tries to mimic it. How cool is that? And honestly, the number of styles you can play with is pretty much endless. You can be a photorealist 1 minute and a classic anime artist the next. You can create a soft, gentle watercolor or a slick, chrome-covered futuristic design. My best advice? Just experiment. Have fun with it. Try mixing them up and see what happens. This is your chance to play in every artistic sandbox you can possibly imagine. Okay, so you get description and you get style. You've learned the rules. Now, this is where the real fun begins. This is where we take those rules and we start mashing them together in ways nobody expects. Welcome to the magic show. I mean, come on, a pizza-shaped spaceship? You're just not going to see that anywhere in the real world. By slamming together 2 totally unrelated ideas, we're forcing the AI to create something brand new, something that has never existed before. It's hilarious, it's surreal, and it's pure, unfiltered creativity. Or how about this? An elephant catching a wave. It's totally absurd, right? It's silly. But it could be the perfect illustration for our kids' book, or just a poster that makes you smile. This just proves that the only real limit here is your own imagination. Seriously, if you can dream it up, you can probably make it. Okay, listen up, because this is important. We're going to bring everything we've just learned together. I'm about to give you a simple but seriously powerful formula. This is the framework you can use every single time to build a perfect master-level prompt.
It all comes down to these 4 key ingredients. Number 1, your subject, the who or what of your image. Number 2, the details, all those juicy descriptors we practiced. 3, the style, that's the artistic look and feel. And finally, number 4, the mood, the emotion, the vibe you want the image to have.
And here is that formula in action. It's like a recipe. Subject, a penguin. Details, wearing a bow tie. Style, let's make it cartoon style. And the mood, cheerful, with bright colors. See how that builds a complete, detailed picture for the AI? It leaves almost nothing up to chance. This right here, this is your key takeaway from our little lesson today. So we're just about at the end of our session. Before you go off and start creating, I want you to think about this technology a little differently. Don't think of it as some complicated machine. I want you to start thinking of it as your new creative partner. This quote really just says it all, doesn't it? The AI is like your own personal art assistant. It's tireless, it's ready to go 24/7. It'll help you sketch out 100 ideas, try 1,000 different styles, and bring even your wildest visions to life without ever complaining. It's an incredible collaborator to have in your corner. And with that, class is dismissed. I've given you the techniques, I've shown you the formula, I've handed you the tools. That digital canvas is sitting there totally blank, just waiting for you. So the only question left is the one right there on the screen. I've given you the brush. Now, what will you create? All right, today we're going to demystify artificial intelligence. We're taking it out of the super techie lab and putting it right into your hands. And look, this isn't about complex code or anything like that. It's about making AI your most useful tool for, well, everything, from planning your day and cooking dinner to getting fit and traveling the world. Let's see how it actually works. So just imagine for a second. What if you had a personal assistant right there in your pocket, ready to go 24/7? Something that could organize your thoughts, plan your day, or even just spark a creative idea when you're stuck. This isn't science fiction anymore. That's the power of AI, and it's something you can tap into right now, probably from the very phone you're holding. Okay, so you've probably heard this word thrown around, prompt. It sounds super technical, right? Well, it's not. A prompt is just you talking to the AI. Think of it as starting a conversation. The more clearly you explain what you need, just like you would to a helpful friend, the better the AI can help you out. It's that simple. So where can this actually help right away? Let's start with something we all struggle with, trying to organize the chaos of our everyday lives. Does this look familiar? I know my to-do list can look like this. It's just a jumble of random thoughts, right? Everything feels important, but there's no structure, no order. It's overwhelming, and honestly, it's hard to even know where to begin. But here's the cool part. Watch what happens when you just hand that messy list over to an AI. You can feed it all those jumbled notes, and bam, it instantly transforms them into a logical, actionable plan. The AI just figures out what to tackle when. It turns all that stress into a clear, simple checklist for your day. And hey, it's not just for your daily chores. Think bigger. Planning a birthday party? The AI can handle all those little details, managing the guest list, helping you draft invitations, and even creating a schedule for the whole event. Something that could take hours of stressful planning, now it can be sorted out in just a few moments. Okay, so we've tackled the calendar. Now let's head to the kitchen. 'Cause you know the feeling, right? You're just staring into the fridge, it's 6 p.m., and you have absolutely no inspiration for what to make for dinner. We've all been there. So you can literally just tell your AI, hey, here's what I've got. Some bread, some cheese, and ketchup. Yeah, not a whole lot to work with, is it? You're probably thinking, a simple cheese on toast? Maybe. But let's see what the AI cooks up. And there you have it. The AI doesn't just give you the most obvious answer. It comes up with something fun, something creative, like cheesy toast pizza. It can even give you the simple steps to make it. It's like having a recipe generator and a creative partner all in one. All right, so we've organized our day, we've figured out dinner. Now let's push this a little further. Let's see how AI can go beyond just managing your life to actually enhancing it, helping with fitness, travel, and even learning new skills. Thinking about getting in shape but have no idea where to start? Totally normal.
You can just ask for a 15-minute workout for a beginner with no equipment. And just like that, the AI becomes your personal trainer on demand, designing a custom routine that fits your exact needs and what you have available.
What about travel planning? You know how you can spend hours jumping between different websites trying to piece a trip together? Forget that. You can just say, plan a 2-day trip to Paris on a budget. It literally becomes your personal travel agent, building an itinerary to help you make the most of your time without breaking the bank. And hey, once that trip is booked, let's say you're going to Tokyo. Your AI can switch hats and become your personal tutor. You can ask it to teach you essential Japanese phrases for your trip. It can help you learn how to say hello, ask for directions, or order food. It just makes the whole experience so much richer. Okay, now for something you might not have ever thought of using AI for. We all get into those tricky social situations, right? Especially when you're trying really hard not to hurt someone's feelings. I mean, let's be real. Saying no is tough. You don't want to be rude. You don't want to upset a friend. Well, you can actually describe the situation to your AI and ask for help. It can give you a few different options, polite, thoughtful ways to say no without burning any bridges. It's kind of like having a communications coach in your pocket. So we've seen how AI can be a personal assistant for our day-to-day. But what about the bigger picture? Let's zoom out and talk about the future. And yeah, let's tackle some of those big fears people have about this technology. You know, this fear that new tech is going to take all our jobs, it's not new. Not at all. Back in the 80s and 90s, people were genuinely worried that personal computers would make them redundant. The panic we're hearing about AI today, it's basically an echo of that exact same anxiety from back then. So maybe there's a better way to look at this. The main thing AI is going to do isn't about eliminating jobs, it's about changing our routines. It's a tool that helps us do our work smarter and more efficiently, which frees us up to focus on the more creative, strategic parts of our jobs. Now, it's true, AI might make it possible for one person to do the work that used to take, say, 10 people. And yeah, on the surface, that sounds pretty scary. But that's never been the end of the story. Because here's the thing about us humans. As we get better and more efficient at solving old problems, we just invent new ones. We create new needs, new ideas, and entirely new kinds of work. Human ingenuity is pretty much infinite. Just like the computer did, AI will create new opportunities we can't even imagine right now. At the end of the day, AI is just a tool. It's a planner, a chef, a trainer, a tutor, a creative partner. Its potential is only really limited by our own imagination. So really, the only question left is the fun one. What are you going to ask it to help you with first? Hey, welcome back. You know, artificial intelligence is, without a doubt, one of the most powerful tools we've ever created. But here's the thing. To really, truly unlock its potential, you got to understand its limits first. So today, we're going to break down how to verify what an AI tells you, how to spot its mistakes, and how to become a way smarter, more effective user. So let's just start with what makes these things so mind-blowing. I mean, think about it. You need an essay, a poem, a business plan, and bam, a large language model can spit out a ton of content in literally seconds. The speed and the scale are just, well, they're almost unbelievable. And right there, that incredible speed leads us straight to the single most important question you have to ask yourself every single time. Okay, this looks great, but is any of it actually factually correct? All right, so here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at why AI seems so smart. Then, we'll talk about why you need a healthy dose of skepticism. We'll dive into some real-world mistakes, some are pretty funny, and then we'll cover the big one, when you absolutely should not trust AI. And finally, we'll bring it all together to see the power of you and AI working as a team. So, first up, why does it feel like you're talking to an all-knowing genius? What's actually happening behind the curtain that makes it so darn capable? Well, here's the breakdown of its core skills. The real magic isn't in thinking or understanding, like you and me. Nope. It's all about pattern recognition on a massive, massive scale. It can chew through more data in a minute than we could in 100 lifetimes. And it finds connections. And that's what lets it generate text that sounds so, well, so plausible. Okay, so because its main skill is just matching patterns, not actually knowing what's true, that brings us to the most important mindset you need. You gotta approach everything it says with a little bit of caution. And this quote from our source material just says it perfectly. No matter how confident or how correct an AI sounds, its answer should always, always be your starting point, not your final destination. A little skepticism is gonna be your best friend, I promise.
So what do we actually call it when an AI just makes stuff up? The official term is a hallucination. And get this, it's not really a bug. It's just a core part of how these things work. They are built to predict the next word that makes the most sense in a sentence, not to check if that sentence is true. It's all about sounding right, not being right. Okay, now let's get into some real examples of these hallucinations. This is where it all gets very, very real. And honestly, sometimes it's pretty wild. These are exactly the kinds of errors you'll run into. And learning to spot them is the key skill. You know, an AI might just invent a fake book to back up its point, or give you a math solution that looks perfect but has a totally wrong step buried inside. It might even make a simple mistake like saying the Krishna River is in Hyderabad, probably just because the words Krishna and Hyderabad showed up near each other a lot in the data it was trained on. And this right here, this is the absolute heart of the matter. An AI is a world-class expert on patterns in language. It knows what words sound good together. But what it completely lacks is any concept of truth. It doesn't know facts from fiction, it can't feel anything, and it can't tell you if what it just said is actually real. Okay, this brings us to what might just be the most important part of this whole explainer. Knowing when an AI's mistake could have really serious consequences. When do you absolutely need a human expert to step in? Think of these 3 areas as total red zones. Asking an AI for medical advice, for legal help, or for what to do with your money is it's incredibly risky. Sure, use it to brainstorm or understand a concept, but the final call it must, come from a qualified doctor, a lawyer, or a financial pro. No exceptions. So what's the bottom line here? It's simple. You have to be the verifier. You are the fact checker. Whether you're trying to cross-reference a technical fact for work or just a fun fact for a night out, your job is to take what the AI gave you and check it against real, reliable sources. So if AI has all these flaws, should we just give up on it, throw it out? No way, absolutely not. The key isn't to ditch the tool, it's to use it the right way as one half of a really powerful team. Look at this. This is the ultimate team up. The AI brings the lightning speed and the insane data analysis. But you bring the stuff that can't be replaced. Judgment, real-world wisdom, ethics, context. You put those 2 together and you get something way, way more powerful than either one could ever be on its own. I absolutely love this analogy from our source. Think about it. A calculator is an amazing tool. It makes math way faster. But it can't tell you which problem you need to solve or what the answer actually means in the real world. AI is just like that, but for ideas. It helps you get there faster, but you are still the one solving the real problem. And that, right there, is the #1 thing to remember. We should never, ever think of AI as a replacement for our own brains, for our own critical thinking. It's an assistant, a co-pilot. It's here to make our thinking faster and more efficient, not to do the thinking for us. So in the end, the limits of AI aren't really a weakness. They're an invitation for us to step up, to be smarter users. The real power isn't just in the technology. It's in the person who's guiding it with judgment and respect for the truth. So, you've got the tool. The real question is, how are you going to use it? Thanks for watching. You know, from the movies that pop up on your streaming service to the route your GPS picks for you, AI is making decisions for us all the time. But what if those decisions aren't quite as objective as we think they are? What if they're quietly carrying a hidden unfairness? It's so easy to assume that technology is neutral, right? I mean, how can a machine be prejudiced? But is that actually true? Let's just think about what happens when you do something as simple as an image search. So if you go online and search for doctor, what do you see? You're probably looking at a page filled mostly with white men. Now try searching for nurse. You'll likely see a whole lot of women. And that is absolutely not a coincidence. It's a mirror showing us the societal stereotypes that the AI has learned, and by showing them back to us, it's actually reinforcing those very same ideas.
This subtle but really powerful effect is exactly what we're digging into. So let's start by getting on the same page about what this all means.
Okay, so what are we really talking about here? AI bias is basically an unfair preference or prejudice that sneaks into the answers or the decisions an AI makes. It's what happens when the system just doesn't treat everyone fairly. And this is the key. It's not some random glitch. It's a learned behavior. All right, so if AI is just a bunch of code,
where does this bias even come from? It definitely doesn't just appear out of thin air. Let's trace it back to its roots.
It really boils down to three big connected sources. First, you've got biased data. Then, that data gets shaped by human assumptions when the system is being built. And very often, both of those things are deeply influenced by old historical problems that are already baked into the data itself.
Think about it like this. An AI only knows what we teach it. So if the information we feed it, the training data, is full of old prejudices, or maybe it only represents one type of person, well, the AI is just going to learn those biases as if they're facts. It's the classic garbage in, garbage out problem. But it's not just about the data. We also have to look at the people involved. The developers who design these systems, they make thousands of small decisions. And their own unconscious biases, things they might not even be aware of, can get coded right into the AI's logic, changing how it weighs information or makes a final call.
And finally, the AI is a student of our history. So if it's trained on data from a world that had, and still has, major gender and racial divides, it doesn't have the context to know that's wrong. It just sees a pattern and learns to repeat it, basically taking the injustices from our past and coding them directly into our future.
And this isn't just some academic thought experiment. This hidden bias has serious, real-world consequences. Let's look at a few examples that are pretty eye-opening. Let's start with hiring. There was this pretty famous case where a company built an AI tool to screen resumes. But here's the problem. It was trained mostly on resumes from men who had been hired over the past decade. So the AI taught itself that male candidates were just better, and it actually started penalizing any resume that had the word women's in it, like women's chess club captain. Or what about facial recognition? Major studies have found that some of the most popular systems out there have way higher error rates when they're trying to identify women and people with darker skin. Why? Because the data they were trained on just wasn't diverse enough. It's a perfect example of how a technical glitch can have deeply unfair consequences for real people. And maybe the most alarming example is how this has crept into our justice system. An AI tool used in the US to predict whether a defendant might commit another crime was found to be biased against minority groups. It was falsely flagging them as being higher risk than they actually were. And these predictions can sway decisions on bail and sentencing. The consequences are just devastating. So the problem is definitely clear, and the stakes are incredibly high. But it's not a lost cause. The good news is, once we really understand where the bias is coming from, we can actually start to build ways to fight back. So what's the game plan? Well, it has to start with the data. We need to make sure it's diverse and balanced, and that means going out of our way to include data from groups that have been left out. It also means we have to build ethics checks into the design process from the very beginning, not just tack them on at the end. And this is so important. We have to make sure there's always a human in the loop, someone who can question the AI and correct it when it inevitably gets things wrong. Look, building a fairer AI isn't just a job for the tech wizards and data scientists. This is a responsibility that really belongs to all of us. You can think of it like a three-legged stool. You've got the creators, who need to build these tools ethically. You've got regulators, who need to set clear rules of the road. And then you have us, the users. We have a huge role to play in demanding accountability and pushing for better systems. So what's our most powerful weapon against bias? It's our own brains. It's us. We have to start by just being aware that bias exists and demanding to know how these tools are built. And most of all, we need to use our own human judgment to ask questions instead of just blindly accepting whatever the machine tells us. And that really gets to the heart of it all. The technology, at the end of the day, is just a tool. It doesn't have good or bad intentions. Its ability to be fair or unfair is a direct reflection of us, of the data we feed it and the rules we give it. AI is incredibly powerful, but its fairness, that depends completely on the people who are guiding it. We are at such a pivotal moment right now. We have this chance to create AI that reflects our best values: fairness, equality, justice. But if we're not paying attention, it will just as easily amplify our worst prejudices. So the final question really isn't about the technology. It's about us. How are we going to choose to guide it?
We're talking to AI all the time, right? We ask it for help with an email, to brainstorm vacation spots, or maybe just to prove a point to a friend.
We're constantly feeding it bits and pieces of our lives, but have you ever stopped to wonder what happens after you hit send? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dive into.
So think about it for a sec. The last time you used an AI, maybe you were trying to figure out a recipe and told it what ingredients you had. Or maybe you uploaded a resume to get some feedback. You gave it personal details, context, all to get a better answer. And poof, in that instant, your information zips off into this gigantic, invisible system. So where does it actually go? And maybe the better question is, who really has their hands on the controls? Let's follow the data trail.
To really get to the bottom of this, we first have to wrap our heads around just how much these AI systems know about us, and it is a staggering amount. But here's the wildest part. Most of the time, we're the ones just handing it over, often without a second thought.
Okay, so the data AI is collecting usually fits into three main categories. First, you've got the obvious stuff, right? Personal details like your name, your email, your phone number. Then, things get a little more subtle with behavioral data. We're talking every search, every click, how long you stared at a picture. It all paints a very detailed portrait of you. And finally, there's the really personal stuff, your biometric data. That's literally the shape of your face or the unique pattern of your fingerprint you use to unlock your phone. It's your digital blueprint.
And when we're talking about all this data, your clicks, your face, your private questions, what we're really talking about is privacy. At the end of the day, it's a pretty simple idea, but it's incredibly powerful. You should be the one in control of your own information. You get to call the shots on who sees it and what they get to do with it. But here's the thing. When you gather all that valuable personal data and store it in one giant digital treasure chest, it paints a huge target on its back. And the risks we're about to talk about aren't just what-ifs. They're happening right now, and they have very real consequences.
So, the most direct threat is a good old-fashioned data leak. Hackers are relentlessly trying to break into the massive servers where companies keep our data. And AI systems are, you guessed it, a top-tier target. In just one breach, everything from your passwords to your private conversations with a chatbot could be stolen and exposed.
Now, beyond just outright theft, there's a quieter, kind of creepy misuse of our data happening all the time. On one level, it's those hyper-targeted ads that seem to read your mind, which, spoiler, they can, because they're built on your data. But on a much more concerning level, it's large-scale surveillance, where your every move online can be tracked and analyzed, often without you ever knowing. And then we get to something that feels like it's straight out of a sci-fi movie, but it's absolutely real. Deepfakes. AI can now create fake videos and audio that are so convincing, it's getting almost impossible to know what's real anymore. And this isn't just about silly videos. It's an incredibly powerful weapon for spreading misinformation that people will believe. AI is also being turned into a weapon to launch some seriously powerful cyber attacks. Get this, criminals have used AI to perfectly clone a CEO's voice, call up a company manager, and trick them into wiring away millions of dollars. These new attacks are smarter, sneakier, and way harder to stop.
You know, this quote really puts it all into perspective. Think about it. Our grandparents knew how valuable their property deeds were, and they protected them. Well, today, our digital data, our entire online identity, our connections, it's arguably even more valuable. The problem is, it's invisible, and it can be snatched away in a blink.
Okay, I know that was a lot. Hearing about all these threats can feel a bit overwhelming, maybe even hopeless. But, and this is a big but, you are not powerless here. There are simple, really effective things you can start doing to protect your digital self, like right now.
It really boils down to two key habits. First up, your passwords. Please, stop using the same easy-to-guess password for everything. Make them long, make them weird, and make them unique. Mix up those letters, numbers, and symbols. Second, just be a little stingy with your data. Before you give an app or a website your info, just ask yourself, do they really need this to function? If not, just don't share it.
But look, while what you do personally is super important, this isn't a solo mission. We're not going to solve this one by one. Real digital security, well, that's a team sport. Seriously, it takes a village. The folks who create AI have to be responsible for building safe systems from the ground up. The companies that use AI have to obey data laws and protect our info. Governments, well, they need to create clear rules of the road. And us, the users, our job is to stay sharp, ask the tough questions, and not fall for obvious scams. Everybody has a crucial role to play. When you boil it all down, we're standing at a fork in the road. We have a choice. We can push this technology towards a future where AI actually respects us and makes our lives better.
or we can just let it drift into a world of surveillance where we're constantly being watched. The path we take really depends on the choices we all make, starting now.
And hey, this conversation isn't just for the tech experts. It really doesn't matter if you're a farmer, a doctor, an artist, whoever you are. In today's world, everyone's data is being collected, and that data is valuable. This impacts every single one of us.
So if you walk away from all this with just one thing burned into your memory, please let it be this. You have a fundamental right to control your personal data. It belongs to you. That control is power. Don't just give it away. Look, AI gives us some pretty amazing and convenient tools, no doubt about it. But we're starting to see it can come at a pretty steep price. So the real question, the one we all have to answer for ourselves, is this. Where do we draw the line? Is all that convenience worth our privacy?
Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we are diving into one of the biggest questions out there right now. How do we actually use AI responsibly? We're going to cut through all the noise and build a simple, powerful checklist that you can use pretty much anywhere, at school, at work, you name it. All right, let's jump right in. So this is really the heart of the matter, isn't it? As these AI tools get smarter and smarter, we're all facing a choice. Are we going to use them to build our skills, to get better, faster, and more creative? Or are we just letting them do the thinking for us, creating this dependency that, honestly, could make us less capable in the long run? This whole explainer is about making sure we stick to that first path. So what's the big idea here? Well, it's actually pretty simple. Responsible AI use is all about seeing AI as a powerful helper. Think of it as a collaborator, right? It can assist you, it can speed up your work, and it can even suggest ideas you hadn't thought of. The point isn't for AI to replace us, but to augment what we do, to make us even better.
I love this analogy because it absolutely nails it. A calculator is totally useless if you don't get the basics of math, right? You still have to know what problem you're trying to solve and whether the answer even makes sense. Well, AI is exactly the same. At the end of the day, you're the one who still needs to know the math.
Okay, so let's make this real. We're going to start with our first checklist, and we're looking at school. For students, that line between a helpful study buddy and a high-tech way to cheat can get kind of blurry. But, getting it right is absolutely crucial if you actually want to learn anything.
And this just lays out the difference so clearly. Over on the left, you see AI being used to actually deepen your understanding. You're creating quizzes to test yourself, you're generating summaries that you then have to check, or you're asking for new examples to really get a concept. But on the right, well, that's just outsourcing your brain, which completely defeats the whole purpose of being in school.
And here is a fantastic real-world example of how to do this right. The AI does the initial heavy lifting, creating a first draft. But all the important stuff, the critical thinking, the analysis, checking the facts, that all happens with human oversight, with the teacher guiding the discussion. This is how you build real skills, not just find shortcuts.
All right, let's shift gears and talk about the professional world. The same ideas apply, but honestly, the stakes can be a whole lot higher. In this context, AI should be your tireless, super efficient assistant that helps you shine, not a replacement for your own professional judgment. Just look at this comparison for the workplace. Responsible use means you let AI handle a first draft of an email or brainstorm some ideas. But you, the expert, you're always the one making the final call. The misuse, though, that can be really dangerous. Blindly trusting an AI-generated report or, even worse, ignoring your own hard-won knowledge. You have to remember, you are the one who is ultimately responsible for whatever you put out there. This is just a perfect example of that partnership in action. Sure, an AI can spit out 100 slogans in a minute, which is awesome for brainstorming, but what it can't do is understand cultural nuances or your brand's unique voice or what will connect emotionally with people. That final creative decision has to be human. That's where the real value is.
So it doesn't matter if you're a student or a CEO. There are some universal rules that are really the foundation for using AI responsibly. We can basically boil it all down to 3 essential things that apply to everybody, everywhere.
And here they are. First, just be transparent. Let people know when AI helped you out. It's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of honesty. Second, and this is a big one, fact check everything. AI can hallucinate. Basically, it just makes stuff up, and it sounds incredibly confident when it's wrong. You have to be the final filter. And third, always remember the goal. Use AI to support your own growth, not to cheat your way out of doing the work. Following these rules isn't just about staying out of trouble. It's really about unlocking the true benefits of this technology. So let's talk about the payoff, about what's in it for you when you use AI responsibly. See, when you treat AI as a partner, you really get the best of both worlds. You save a ton of time on boring tasks, which frees you up to focus on what actually matters. It can help you break through a creative block by just generating a bunch of new ideas. But maybe most importantly, you're building an absolutely essential skill for the future. You're learning how to work with intelligent systems. This isn't just a gimmick. It's becoming a core skill in almost every field. If you take away just one single thing today, please let it be this. AI is not your replacement, and it is not your brain. It's your partner. A really powerful, really capable partner that works best when it's guided by your wisdom, your ethics, and your judgment. So we'll end on this final question for you to chew on. Where do we need to draw the line a little bit stricter? In schools, where people are just building the foundations of learning, or in workplaces, where a single mistake can have huge, immediate consequences? It's a tricky question, for sure, and the answer is going to shape how we all live and work with AI. Thanks for joining me.
Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, let's talk about AI. Because, it's not some far-off sci-fi concept anymore. It's here, right now, and it is already starting to shake things up at work. In this explainer, we're going to dig into what this really means, especially for office professionals and even for software engineers, looking at everything from handling emails to actually writing code. So the big question, right? Is AI going to change the workplace forever? Well, to even begin to answer that, we've got to get a handle on what this technology actually is at its core. This quote from our source material just absolutely nails it. AI isn't good or bad on its own. It's just a really, really powerful tool. And its impact, that depends completely on how we, the people, decide to use it. Okay, so here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at that double-edged sword nature of AI. Then, we'll dive into how it's automating tasks, what that means for our own creativity, the bigger risks we really need to keep an eye on, and finally, how we can steer all this towards a future we actually want to live in. All right, first things first, let's talk about the bright side. The source material really paints this incredible picture of a future where AI could help us solve some of the biggest problems humanity's facing. I mean, just think about the potential here. It's kind of mind-blowing. We're talking about a world with a personalized tutor for every single student, or doctors getting diagnoses way faster, or even using all this data to protect the environment and make our cities run better. The possibilities are just huge. Okay, now for the part that I'm sure is on a lot of our minds. What does this all mean for my job? For the day-to-day work of office professionals and software developers. So, what's on the chopping block first? Well, according to the sources, this first wave of change isn't about getting rid of entire jobs. Nope. It's all about automating specific tasks. The really routine, predictable, and kind of boring ones. Yeah, so if your job involves a ton of this kind of stuff, you're definitely going to see some big changes. For someone in an office, that might be scheduling meetings or doing data entry. For a software engineer, think about automating basic tests or generating all that boilerplate code. AI can do that stuff incredibly fast. So, if AI is taking over all the repetitive grunt work, that leads to a really important question, right? What's left for us to do? What's our role going to be in all this? And this right here is the whole game. It's not about humans versus machines. It's more like a new division of labor. Let AI handle the tedious stuff so that we can free up our brains for the things that we're actually amazing at, thinking critically, solving complex problems, and being truly innovative. Let's make this real for a second. Picture a software developer. Instead of spending hours debugging code, they use an AI assistant to find bugs in minutes. What does that do? It frees them up to spend their valuable time thinking about the big picture, designing a complex, new feature that could totally change the business. So really, the best way to think about this isn't us versus them. It's more like getting a super smart collaborator. I mean, we're already seeing it. Artists are using AI to brainstorm ideas, and marketers are using it to whip up tons of ad concepts in seconds. It's a tool that can amplify our own creativity, and that partnership, that's where the magic really happens. But, it's not all sunshine and roses. A technological shift this big comes with some serious challenges. There are some huge societal risks that we absolutely have to talk about. And this is a big one. The source material warns about something called the AI divide.
It's basically a new version of the haves and the have-nots, where access to powerful AI tools creates this massive gap between people, companies, and even entire countries. That, plus things like job losses and privacy risks, these are major hurdles we have to figure out. So that's the big puzzle, isn't it? We've got all this potential for good on one hand and all these very real risks on the other. How do we get the good stuff while making sure we manage the dangers? And if there's one thing you take away from all of this, it should be this. AI is just a tool. It doesn't have its own goals or desires. It's the choices that we all make right now that are going to decide what kind of impact it has on our future. What that means is we can't just sit back and see what happens. We have to be proactive. We need to build strong ethical rules, come up with new laws and company policies for how to use AI responsibly. And this is the most important part. Always make sure that human intelligence is the one in charge, guiding how this stuff gets built and used. I mean, it really all boils down to this. The responsibility is on every one of us. The people making policies, the developers building the tech, the leaders running companies, and all of us using it to make sure this incredibly powerful tool actually serves humanity. We have to stay in the driver's seat. And that really brings the question back to you, doesn't it? This isn't just some academic debate for scientists and CEOs anymore. As these tools become a bigger part of our everyday lives, it's a question for all of us. So, how will you use this fire? Are you going to use it to warm a home, or will you stand by and let it burn down the forest? The choice is ours to make. Ever feel like you're asking your AI good questions, but still getting, kind of mediocre answers? If you really want to get those powerful, precise, and genuinely useful results, you've got to go beyond the basics. So today, we're going to dive into some advanced prompt structures that will totally transform how you interact with AI. So here's our game plan for today. We'll start by looking at why those simple prompts often just fall short. Then, we're going to break down 3 really powerful techniques: chains, trees, and multi-step prompts. After that, I'll show you how to figure out the right strategy for what you need so you can start experimenting on your own. Okay, let's kick things off with a problem I am sure we've all faced. You ask the AI a simple question, and what you get back is a simple, short, and often pretty useless answer. Sound familiar? It's so frustrating, isn't it? You know exactly what you want, but the AI just doesn't seem to get what you're really trying to do. And that's because for complex problems, an AI needs more than just a question. It needs a little guidance, some step-by-step instructions. Here's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. On the left, a prompt like, "Explain World War II." I mean, that's just way too broad. The AI has no clue where to even start. But now look at the targeted prompt on the right. It asks for a specific number of causes, it wants an explanation for each, and then a comparison. The result? A much more focused and useful response. And that's really the whole goal here. By using these more advanced structures, we can just dramatically improve the accuracy and the depth of the answers we get. It's all about taking control and guiding the AI to create the exact output you're looking for. Okay, so our first advanced technique is called prompt chains. The best way to think about this is like you're having a conversation with the AI where you build on each of its answers step by step to get a better and better result. So a prompt chain isn't just a random list of questions, it's a very deliberate sequence. Each new prompt you give it uses the AI's last response as a jumping-off point, which lets you narrow down, expand on, or just tweak the information as you go. This step-by-step method is absolutely perfect for those bigger, more complicated tasks. So if you're writing an essay, putting together a detailed report, or even coming up with a creative story, prompt chains give you the control to build it all out, piece by piece. Let's walk through a real-world example. Say you're writing an essay. You could start broad, asking for 5 main points on climate change. Then you zoom in on just one of those points, say point number 2, and you ask the AI to expand that into a full paragraph with examples. Finally, you zoom back out and ask for a nice, tight summary. See, you're guiding the creation of a structured essay, one step at a time. Next up, we've got prompt trees. This is going to be your go-to strategy whenever you need to brainstorm or explore a bunch of different possibilities that all stem from one single central idea. So unlike a chain, which kind of follows a single path, a tree starts with a core idea and then branches out in different directions. This lets you investigate multiple angles of a topic all at the same time. It is fantastic for brainstorming. To really get this, picture an actual tree, right? The main question you ask is the trunk. It's the solid foundation that everything else is going to grow from. In this case, our trunk is asking for 3 different solutions to plastic waste.
Okay, so from that trunk, now we grow our branches. Each branch is a different follow-up prompt that explores one of those initial solutions, but in a totally unique way. We can ask for a deep dive on one, a pros and cons list for another, and even a really creative, futuristic scenario for the third.
And finally, the really detailed, specific answers you get back from each of those branches, well, those are the leaves of your tree. You've just successfully explored a bunch of different avenues, all from a single starting point. All right, on to our third and final technique, the multi-step prompt. This one is all about efficiency. It's how you pack a whole series of complex instructions into one single, really powerful command. The key thing to get here is that it's just one prompt, but it has multiple instructions built right in. You're basically telling the AI, first do this, then do that, and to finish up, do this other thing, all in one go. I mean, just look at how much is packed into this single prompt. It asks the AI to first explain 3 different concepts, then give an example for each one, and then create a 2-question quiz for each law. It's basically a complete learning module in one sentence. The real power here is just how fast it is. With one really well-crafted prompt, you're getting a whole lesson, you're getting concrete examples, and you're getting a way to test your knowledge. It's incredibly efficient when you already have a clear, multi-step task in mind.
Okay, so we've covered 3 pretty powerful techniques. But now for the million-dollar question. Which one should you use and when? Let's break down how to choose the right strategy.
This table gives us a great side-by-side. Think of it this way. Use a prompt chain when you've got a big, exploratory project where you need a high degree of control to fine-tune things as you go. But on the other hand, go for a multi-step prompt for those quick, specific tasks where you already know the exact steps and you just want a fast result. So we've covered the theory, we've seen some powerful examples, and now, well, it's your turn to put all of this into practice. Let's just quickly lock in the main takeaways.
So let's recap real quick. Use prompt chains to build and refine your output incrementally. Use prompt trees to explore a bunch of different creative or strategic options. And use multi-step prompts when you need to get a complex, predefined task done fast. And what this all really boils down to is that you are no longer just a passive question asker. You become the director of the conversation. Mastering these structures gives you way more control over the AI's output, and it transforms it into a much more powerful and precise tool for you. So I'll leave you with this final thought. Imagine you're studying for a big test. Which of these structures would you use to help you prepare? A chain to build out your notes, a tree to explore related concepts, or a multi-step prompt to quiz yourself? The right structure really can make all the difference. So we all know AI is great at spitting out answers to questions, right? But what if it could do so much more? What if it could be your creative partner for your biggest, most ambitious ideas? Today, we're going to unpack a whole new way to work with AI, not just as a tool, but as a genuine collaborator. I mean, think about it. We've all been there. You're trying to launch a startup, or maybe you're just staring at a blank page for a huge school project. You need ideas, you need that spark. What if the key to unlocking your best work was actually learning how to team up with an AI? Let's dive into how that actually works. All right, here's what we've got lined up. First, we'll completely reframe how you think about AI. Then, we'll get practical with a simple playbook for working together. We'll even apply it to a couple of real-world examples, talk about some ground rules, and wrap up by thinking about what kind of teammate your AI will be for you. Okay, first things first. We really need to stop thinking about AI as just a fancy search engine. It's time for a major mental upgrade.
The really big shift is this: seeing AI as a work partner. Just imagine you had a teammate with a perfect memory who could process information at, well, lightning speed. That's your AI. So your prompts aren't just questions anymore. They're actually instructions for your new teammate.
And here's where this partnership really starts to cook. Our skills are the perfect complement to each other. We humans bring creativity, empathy, and most importantly, judgment to the table. The AI, it brings the raw power, unbelievable speed, a massive memory, and the ability to just crunch huge amounts of data. We see the forest, it sees every single tree. And that's the whole idea right there. The best results don't come from just the human, and they don't come from just the AI. They happen when you create this kind of hybrid team that takes the best of both worlds. That's where the real breakthroughs are.
So that all sounds good in theory, right? But how do we actually do this? Let's get practical and look at a super simple process you can use for pretty much any project. Now, before we jump into the steps, you got to remember this one thing. Any great partnership, whether it's with a person or an AI, works best when the roles are crystal clear. You need to know what your job is, and you need to tell the AI what its job is.
So, it all boils down to the simple, repeatable loop. First, you're the leader. You make that initial big picture request to get some ideas flowing. Second, the AI gives you a bunch of options, and your job is to use your human judgment to filter through them and pick the winners. And finally, you send the AI back to work, telling it to expand and build upon only the best ideas. You ask, you judge, and it refines. Simple as that.
Okay, let's put this playbook to the test in a pretty high-stakes situation. Let's say you want to launch a brand new company.
You start off broad, but clear. See, you're not asking for a perfect business plan right out of the gate. You're just casting a really wide net to get the creative juices flowing. You're the one setting the direction. Instantly, the AI is going to generate a list for you. Now, this is the moment where you, the human, are completely irreplaceable. You scan that list and you use your gut, your experience, your judgment, and you cherry pick those 2 or 3 ideas that just feel like they have real potential. You're the curator here.
Once you've made your picks, you go right back to your AI teammate. You give it a new, much more focused task. You're not just taking the first draft and running with it, you're directing the next phase. This back and forth process is the absolute key to getting something amazing.
And here's the payoff. The whole process is way faster because the AI does all the heavy lifting on the research and drafting. But the ideas are also richer because your wisdom and your judgment are guiding the process every single step of the way. Now, let's switch gears and see how this exact same playbook can be a total game changer in a different context, like a big school project.
I mean, think about it. Your AI teammate can be the ultimate research assistant. It can help you find sources, summarize the key points, structure a first draft, suggest some cool visual aids, and even create practice questions to make sure you know your stuff. It handles all the grunt work so you can focus on the actual thinking.
But remember, your role is still by far the most important one. You're the project lead. You have to guide the AI, you have to heavily edit whatever it produces, and most critically, you have to add your own original thoughts, your own analysis, your own context. At the end of the day, you own the project, not the AI. This all sounds fantastic, but any successful partnership needs some boundaries. So let's cover the essential rules for making sure you always stay in control. So here are the key do's and don'ts. Absolutely do use your judgment and stay in control of where the project is going. Your job is to add that human creativity. On the other hand, don't over-rely on the AI or let it make your critical decisions for you. And you've got to be careful. Don't ask it for things it can't know and expect factual answers. You still have to do the fact-checking. You know, if you take just one thing away from all this, let it be this. AI is not here to replace human ingenuity, it's here to amplify it. It's an incredibly powerful partner, but you are still the leader.
So we've seen the potential. We've got the playbook. Now, really, the choice is yours. How are you going to integrate this new kind of teammate into the way you work? So what's it going to be? Are you going to treat it like a classmate you can bounce ideas off of? Maybe a tutor to help you master a tough subject? Or is it just a personal assistant that follows instructions? Because the way you define that role, that's going to determine the kind of results you get.
So, we're all using AI, right? We ask it questions and we get answers fast. But here's the thing. Are those answers actually right? Today we're going to talk about how to stop just taking what the AI gives you and start becoming a smart, critical evaluator of it. Let's jump in.
This really is the big question, isn't it? You get a response back, it looks super polished, super confident. But can you really, truly trust it? Well, as you're about to see, the answer isn't a simple yes or no. It's a bit more complicated than that.
And this quote, it just nails it perfectly. Think of AI as this incredibly helpful tool. It's fantastic, but it's not some all-knowing oracle. Just getting that one simple fact straight is probably the most important first step to using AI the right way.
Okay, so why do we have to be so skeptical? Well, it's because AI creates this illusion of perfection. It shoots out answers so fast and with so much authority that, we're all tempted to just take them as gospel. But that can be a really big mistake.
Just look at this. Put yourself in this student's shoes for a second.
You ask a pretty simple math question and the AI gives you an answer. Okay, great. But then you ask it again. Maybe you just refresh it and it gives you a totally different answer. What does that tell you? It shows that AI can be wildly inconsistent and it can be completely confidently wrong.
So, what is going on under the hood here? Well, you have to remember an AI is only as good as the massive amount of data it was trained on. And if that data has biases, if it has weird little nuances, or just plain old factual errors, well, those flaws are going to show up in the answers. And the most important thing to get is that the AI doesn't understand anything, not like we do. It's just a master at recognizing and repeating patterns it's seen before.
Okay, so we've talked about what can go wrong, but what does right actually look like? Let's switch gears and talk about the signs of a really high-quality response, because honestly, knowing what you're looking for is half the battle.
So a really great answer pretty much always has these 4 things going for it. Ask yourself, is it clear and simple, or is it just spitting a bunch of jargon at me? Are the facts actually accurate? You might have to do a quick check on that. Does the whole thing make logical sense? And maybe most importantly, did it actually answer the question I asked, or did it go off on some tangent? Think of this as your basic checklist.
All right, now let's flip that around and look at the big red flags. If you can learn to spot these common mistakes, you'll be able to see a bad AI answer coming from a mile away.
Now, the biggest, and frankly the most dangerous error, has a very specific name. It's called a hallucination. This is what happens when the AI just doesn't know the answer, so it just makes something up. Seriously, it'll invent facts, create fake data, or tell these elaborate stories that are completely false, all while sounding totally convincing. And beyond those crazy hallucinations, you'll want to keep an eye out for these other problems. Like when the AI just starts repeating itself in circles, or gives answers that are super vague. Or a big one, when it seems to completely forget what you were talking about in your earlier questions. These are all major signs that something's not right.
Okay, so we've covered the problems, we've talked about the red flags. Now for the good stuff. Let's build your personal AI evaluation toolkit. These are the practical, hands-on things you can do to go from just being a passive user to a really active, critical evaluator. Here is a super simple 4-step process you can use every single time. 1. Cross-check the facts. If the AI gives you a statistic or a date, take 10 seconds and check it against the source you actually trust. 2. Compare answers. Run the same prompt a couple of times. If you get wildly different responses, that's a huge red flag. 3. Just think critically. Use your common sense. Does this answer actually seem logical? And 4. Use follow-up prompts. Push back. Tell the AI to clarify something, or simplify it, or even defend its answer. Remember, you're the one in control here.
And here's a perfect example of that last step in action. Let's say you ask it to explain photosynthesis, and you get this super technical, dense answer. Don't just give up. You can give it a new instruction. By asking for a cooking example, you're forcing the AI to think differently, to be more creative and relatable. And you almost always get a much, much better answer.
So what this all really boils down to is a shift in your mindset. We really have to start changing how we think about our entire relationship with this technology.
So, stop thinking of AI as an all-knowing oracle or some kind of expert. That's the wrong way to look at it. Instead, think of it as an assistant who needs your guidance, or maybe a collaborator who needs your critical eye. I think the best analogy is to think of it like a very, very smart classmate. They're super helpful, they're incredibly fast, but you're definitely going to want to double-check their work before you turn it in. And ultimately, this is the main takeaway. The skills you're learning right now as an evaluator, those are the very same skills that are going to make you a truly powerful AI user. It's not just about getting a better answer today. It's about learning how to work with the technology that's shaping our future. The better you get at spotting the flaws, the better you'll get at making the AI give you the results you actually want. And I just want to leave you with this one last thought to chew on. Where do you think it's harder to spot an AI's mistake? For a student in school who might be learning about a topic for the very first time, or for someone at work where you probably have years of experience to rely on? It kind of makes you think, doesn't it? The more we rely on AI to learn new things, the more we absolutely need our own human critical thinking to steer it in the right direction.
All right, let's be honest. If you've ever used an AI tool, you know that feeling, right? 1 minute, it gives you this amazing, brilliant answer, and the next, it's just total garbage. Getting consistent, high-quality results can feel like a roll of the dice. But what if it didn't have to be? What if you could take luck right out of the equation? I mean, does this sound familiar? You've got a task to do, you open up your favorite AI, and you're just staring at that blinking cursor trying to remember, what were those magic words I used last week that actually worked? So you end up starting from scratch again, just kind of hoping for the best. It's so frustrating. And it's not just annoying, it's a massive waste of time. All those minutes you spend rewriting prompts or digging through bad AI answers, that's time and brain power you could be using for your actual work. There's gotta be a better way, right? A more systematic approach to telling these things what to do.
Well, there is. And here it is. The solution is to stop thinking of every prompt as a one-time thing. Instead, you're going to start building something systematic. We're talking about your very own personal prompt toolkit.
So, what exactly is a prompt toolkit? It's pretty simple, actually. It's just a collection of your best prompts, the ones that you've already tested, fine-tuned, and you know they work. I love this analogy. Think of it as your personal AI playbook. You've got a specific play ready for any situation.
And why would you do this? Well, the payoff is huge. First off, it's going to save you so much time. No more of that starting from scratch nightmare. Plus, you'll get way more consistent, high-quality results because you're using prompts that are proven to work. And here's the kicker. It actually helps you learn. It becomes this living document of what works, and, just as importantly, what doesn't.
Okay, so hopefully you're on board with this idea. But where do you even start? The first step is super easy. Just start collecting and organizing your prompts.
Now, you don't want to just throw everything into one giant messy file. Think about all of the different things you do. You could have a study category for when you need to summarize stuff or make quizzes. A work category is a must-have for drafting emails or reports. Maybe a creative one for brainstorming story ideas. You can even have a fun category for jokes or games. Suddenly, it's not a junk drawer anymore. It's a perfectly organized toolbox.
And keeping it organized doesn't have to be complicated. A simple digital note or even a text file works great. But here is the absolute key. You have to do this. Next to every prompt you save, add a little note about the context. Like, what were you trying to do? Why did this version work so well? Because trust me, a month from now, you won't remember. And that little note about the why is pure gold. Okay, but here's where we get to the real secret sauce. Building an amazing toolkit isn't just about saving your greatest hits. Nope. The real secret to becoming a master at this is learning from your failures. This is the thing that takes you from someone who just messes around with AI to a true power user. And it all boils down to this really simple but powerful idea, the refinement loop. So here's how it works. 1, just pay attention to what the AI gives you back. 2, when a prompt totally fails, gives you a junk answer, don't just get frustrated and delete it. Figure out why it failed. 3, you refine it. Tweak the wording, add more detail, be more specific. 4, test it again, see if it's better. And you just keep doing that until, boom, you get a great result. That's when you save the new and improved version to your toolkit. Just look at this example. It makes it so clear. On the one hand, you've got summarize this. I mean, that's a total gamble, right? Who knows what you'll get? But look at the refined version. Summarize the key findings from this report in 5 clear bullet points for a non-technical audience. See? That's not a request, that's a command. You've told it exactly what you want, how you want it, and who it's for. The ambiguity is gone. And you only got there by learning from how bad the first prompt was. And that's the big mindset shift right there. Every single failure is actually a lesson. It's not a dead end. It's the AI literally telling you, hey, your instructions weren't clear enough right here. So every bad response is basically a free lesson in how to get better at this.
So when you get into this rhythm of collecting, testing, and constantly refining, what you're building is so much more than just a list of sentences. It's something way bigger. That collection of prompts, it's more than a toolkit. It becomes your personal AI strategy guide. Think about that. It's a guide that reflects your own unique needs and your own way of thinking. It's basically your proof that you know how to wield these tools effectively. This guide really represents your own growing power and skill. It's what takes you from being just a casual user of AI to someone who can strategically leverage it for pretty much anything. It gives you the confidence to know you can get what you need every single time. So let me leave you with a question. What's the first failed prompt you're going to fix? Think back to the last time an AI gave you a really garbage response. That prompt isn't something to forget about. No, that's prompt number 1 in your brand new AI strategy guide.
We often treat interacting with artificial intelligence like learning a complex programming language, but getting useful results is really an exercise in clear communication. The term prompt engineering sounds technical. In this context, engineering simply means problem solving. You are using structured language to ask for exactly what you need. You do not need a computer science degree to do this. The goal of this process is to build a personal prompt toolkit. This is a customized, categorized library where you store the specific instructions that consistently give you the best results, ready to be reused every day. Building this library changes how you operate. Instead of passively accepting whatever the machine hands you, you become the active director of its logic. To start your toolkit, let's create a mental workspace. We will divide your daily tasks into 3 main categories: education and study, professional workplace, and everyday problem solving. For each of these categories, your first step is to write a baseline prompt. This is your starting point, a set of initial instructions that orient the AI toward your specific goal. A baseline prompt requires 3 variables. First, the precise task, explain gravity. Second, the audience boundary, to a 10-year-old. Finally, the style, with a story. These boundaries act as guardrails, preventing responses that are too academic or broad. If you leave the boundaries open, the system produces noise. When you apply structured parameters, you get a targeted, immediate result. Once you run that baseline prompt, you will hit the most common roadblock. Many people accept that first generated output as the definitive answer. This is where we apply the one-word tweak method. By changing a single adjective related to tone or style, you force the AI to reroute its entire logical path. This layout contrasts the 2 outputs. On the left is our baseline response, a generic explanation of gravity. On the right, we added the word sci-fi to our style constraint. The AI immediately shifts its vocabulary and pacing to match that specific genre. Finding the exact words to trigger the response you want is an acquired skill. You develop it entirely through repeated trial and error. The intellectual value of prompt engineering does not lie in the first request. It is located entirely in this cycle of testing and refinement. Eventually, you will test a variation that gives you exactly the structure, tone, and detail you need. That is your finalized prompt. When you hit that mark, extract the exact text of your instruction, copy it out of the chat window, and physically paste it into the matching category in your digital toolkit. As your toolkit grows, treat it as an open exhibition. This should not be a private document that lives only on your desktop. Share these successful prompts with your colleagues or classmates. When you compare notes, you will discover alternative phrasing tricks and logic structures that you wouldn't have found on your own. Archiving and sharing these assets takes a single successful AI interaction and turns it into a repeatable workflow that an entire team can use. Over the coming years, large language models will follow a steep trajectory of growth. The models will process data faster and draw more complex connections. But regardless of that raw computing power, the machine still needs direction. Your ability to supply precise language and context remains the absolute bottleneck for getting anything useful out of the system. Millions of people will use these tools, but very few will use them with a specific, repeatable methodology. By building a library of proven prompts, you develop a skill set that allows you to guide others and manage complex AI interactions that standard users cannot replicate. You can put that into practice right now. Take the most effective prompt technique you've discovered and share it in the comments section below. Artificial intelligence is simply an engine. The quality of its output is strictly dictated by the clarity and intent you bring to the controls.